Thanks for tuning in to Natural AF. I'm your host, Isaac.
And I'm Alexa.
And this show, if you're new here, is where we kind of go off the rails. We go off the reservation into the wild to discover who we really are, what we're really capable of, and how to find our most authentic selves and to live that life to the best of our ability. So this is a great episode where we delve into one of our favorite topics, human design.
And relationships, actually two of our favorite topics.
Yes.
So we have the couple that need no introduction because they've both been on individual episodes already on this podcast. So we've got Yerasimos and Sophie. So for those that haven't heard any of our previous episodes or these in particular, I highly recommend them. Yerasimos was episode number 12. So way back when we just relaunched the podcast. So Yerasimos has a background in body work. He's now very well known for his podcast Here for the Truth. And then Sophie is I'd like to call her our resident nervous system expert, but she's not quite a resident yet, but she's a good friend of ours and nervous system expert. So we spoke to her all about that on episode 26. And for anyone listening that still has been listening to us for a while and still has no idea what human design is, or for new listeners that human design is new to them, highly recommend going back and listening to our episodes with Anita Toy. They were episodes number 21 and 22, where we dived right into the foundations of human design, really. And for those that are familiar, highly recommend having your chart handy if you can while listening to this. If you don't have your chart already, you can go and get them for free online. We like to use, I pull mine from jovianarchive.com. I think another popular one is My Body Graph or My Human Design.
I draw mine in the dirt out in the front yard.
But we'll pop some links in the show notes where you can pull your free chart. And yeah, highly recommend having your chart handy so you can actually look at your own chart and see where, some of the things we talk about are relevant to you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the guys out there that might be skeptical of this and things like astrology and all that, totally get you. Feel right there with you when I first started learning about this stuff. And it's more important to, especially for the relationships, both with yourself and with your partner, to really learn about each other. And that's the function of it. It's not a skill like framing a house and building this and that. It's more of a soft skill. And the soft skills is where men typically tend to be very deficient or lacking in, or just, don't pay as much attention to. So this is a good time to practice and learn about something that will fill in the less tangible spots on the relationship, but give you some really foundational things that you can work on with your partner, which is just understanding each other, understanding yourself. And the more you shape a vocabulary around this stuff, it makes it easier for you to communicate when you have upsets or problems or difficulties. This is just where we step more into our adulthood and our manhood and being more capable. One of my favorite things to talk about with men is expanding our capacity as men in all directions, including the softer side. So this is really helping me out and has done a lot to help with understanding and communication in my relationship.
Well, we've talked about this, I'm sure, on the podcast before, that human design played such a huge part in us getting to know each other because we both knew our designs and we talked about it a lot in the early days. And it's such a beautiful tool for self-knowledge. So first and foremost, it can help you to get to know yourself, which is so key when entering any relationship, because if you don't know who you are, you're more likely to end up in codependency because you just become like the other person or vice versa. And I feel like when you're not aware of your triggers and things like that, it just can become quite volatile. Like there's just so many problems that can stem from really not knowing who you are and then entering in a relationship in that state. So that's why we love human design, and it can be applied in so many different ways. So we really wanted to just highlight the way that it can be applied to relationships in this episode. And Yerasimos and Sophie speak to that so well because it was such a big part of their journey together. So before we get into it.
So if you also want to support your body's health and stay as natural and fit as you possibly can be, we have products that support that, whether it's natural deodorant to keep you from stinking up the house when you come home from a hard day out in the field throwing hay bales, or from coming home from the gym and you're sore and you're grumpy, rub some Alleviate on it. Got a broken knee, rub some Alleviate on it. We've got a few products that have a lot of different uses, and we're really excited about them. And we have so many great stories and testimonials from people using it. In fact, just this weekend, and this is for those listening in Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand area, you can buy Regenerate. But and it's coming soon to the US. I know I keep saying that, but
And just for the
real.
record, Tasmania is still Australia.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it though?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because I was worried that I wasn't including them. So yeah, for people there. So we had a lady that was at the market bitten by these midges or sandflies, really irritating little bastards. And she was just scratching away and was like, do you have anything for these? Because these are driving me nuts. Someone has given me stuff for it. It's not helping. And I was like, yeah, but you got to stop scratching it. Put this Regenerate on it. Try it out. And it seemed to start helping, but she was still like scratching it. The next day I was at a different market, and that same woman came to that market as well. And was thanking me so much for that product, because she put a little bit on there and it helped. It totally stopped the itching from the sandflies. And I think honestly, I have a weird sense of humor, but I think it's hilarious that what started out was like a sunburn remedy actually is really good for the most annoying, because I hate mosquito bite itches. It's the worst. I grew up in Texas, Wyoming and Texas, but in Texas we had massive mosquitoes, and the hay fields were flood irrigated, and just all that mosquito larva would just go into the fields. And when you'd go outside, you'd see this brown cloud in the air of all the mosquitoes at night.
Wow.
It was otherworldly.
Yeah, that's insane. I thought the mosquitoes were bad here, but that's insane.
No, it's crazy. So out of balance. But yeah, so it worked really well. So I'm excited when we find out all the different things that these things are good for.
They're the products that just keep on giving.
Like using the deodorant for helping babies sleep. I'm like, it's so funny to me. Is that weird that that's funny?
It's not funny. I love it. I love when you can stack functions. Like someone just said over the weekend that they were hesitant to buying a jar of Alleviate because they've already got so many creams. Yeah. We have thrown out so many creams that like don't work because it takes the place of like 9 different creams.
Yeah.
So I love it. I love that it can stack functions and it saves so much room in your medicine cabinet or your first aid kit or wherever you keep it.
Exactly. Speaking of that, we don't have a bathtub here. So I used to do magnesium soaks, like Epsom salt. With all the sore muscles, or if I was injured. It's really convenient having Alleviate, where I don't need to have a bathtub to soak the magnesium in. I just rub this on the body, and it works much in the same way, although it gives you a bunch of other benefits that you can find on our website, naturalartform.com.
So for our listeners, you'll get 10% off your entire order. No matter how many times you order, you can always use this code NaturalAF10. So use that at checkout. And if you haven't already joined our mailing list, we send out a monthly newsletter with updates and sales and where we're going to be at the markets and all the fun things. So you can do that on the website as well.
And we'll probably post some free resources. In fact, this month I've already got it. I've got the link ready. We'll post a free download for one of the best herbal remedies, whatever part of the world you're from. It's out of the UK, this little book, but it's old. It's sold over 9 million copies, and now it's part of what do they call it? It's free. It's like an archive.org thing. But it's such a valuable resource, and we'll be sharing things like that. But this shows you how to identify and use and what type of situations these different herbs are good for. And I sent that to my family back in the States for my older dad. He's having some skin irritation issues, and I think it's going to help. So free resources in our newsletter, and they're good. You're not going to find those anywhere else because we're onto it. We're very perceptive and we love sharing stuff. So,
well, this is a long one, guys, so we won't keep you any longer. Either split this one into 2 or a few listens, or download it if you're going on a long drive or you've got a plane to catch.
Take your wife on a date, take her out to go hiking somewhere and listen to it on the drive out there.
Didn't know where you were going with that. And and I also just wanted to mention, there's about halfway through, Isaac got up to fix a light, went out or something. I don't even know. I was so engrossed in what I was saying. And we had a bit of a giggle about it after, because I was like, I was so engrossed in what I was saying. I didn't even notice you get up until you were standing in front of me. So I didn't even stop so that we could like cut it and continue.
We have these lights.
Oh, well, we're really going behind the scenes now, aren't we?
And they have a little magnet charging cord that I keep them plugged in on, so I don't have to.
But sometimes they just they just die even when it's plugged in. So
yeah, so I noticed that I didn't put that on, and I just want to fix it. And hopefully it's not too distracting. Apparently not, because Alexa didn't even really notice that I was gone.
I think it was more about I was just so engrossed in the conversation. But anyway,
which is good.
All right, well, let's get into it, guys. Enjoy the episode.
Thanks so much, Sophie and Yerasimos. To have you back on again is just a pleasure and an honor. Love seeing you.
Thanks for being
good
here.
to see you guys.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy that I get to be on with Yerasimos. I was so devastated when we relaunched the podcast and we released the episode that Isaac did with you. And I got so much FOMO. I never get FOMO, but I was like, oh, I want to interview Yerasimos.
Well, here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels like it was just like last year, but it's been longer than that. So it's crazy how time is flying.
I know, man. I agree. Well, it's good to see you both. I'm happy that you guys are doing this. I'm happy that you have your podcast and you're recording lots of episodes and doing your thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I feel actually very validated that I have someone else on the podcast that also goes by one name only. We're kind of like Cher or Madonna. I love that. I was like, yes, Yerasimos and me, we can relate on that.
Yeah,
I have a joke about it because I didn't change my last name like officially on our marriage certificate. I can actually go by either, but I didn't officially like change all my documents or whatever. And now that he really just goes by Yerasimos, I kind of joke about it where I'm like, thank God I didn't. And I'm just like the only silly this year.
Yeah.
I love it. It's hilarious.
Sometimes my last name my last name sometimes gets put on things occasionally if someone finds me on Facebook, but usually I just go by the single name. It's easier.
Yeah. I'm the
There's
same.
a lot going on there.
Yeah, when you've got an ethnic surname, it's just easier to just not use it at all.
Yerasimos Stilianesis. It's got a flow to it, but at the same time, some is just long. Keep it simple.
Yeah. But yeah, so we wanted to get into, especially with you two coming on, I view you as a power couple. I don't know if you view yourselves that way, but you're definitely making some changes, inspiring people. You inspired both of us, and we look up to you. We have an admiration for y'all and your relationship and the lessons that you've learned and shared. So this episode is going to center around relationships and using the tools that we've discussed, some individually. We're going to discuss those together here about how to navigate tough times, good times with human design and other things. So
yeah. Okay. So I've heard this story so many times, but I love hearing it every time. Just for the audience, maybe let's open up with how you guys have used human design to navigate your relationship and maybe, and through the evolution of your relationship. So maybe earlier on when you introduced human design because did you guys know your human design like when you met each other or was it after?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we met 11 years ago and we both knew our human design. I mean, we were a little much earlier on in our process, but we were familiar with human design when we met, which helped.
Yeah, awesome. So if you want to get into, first, I guess how it helped you to get to know each other in the early stages and then how it sort of progressed and like what aspects of human design do you now sort of use in your day-to-day in your relationship?
Do you want to talk, my love?
Sure. Well, I'll start off by saying that a big piece, human design is a big piece of why we're actually together still right now. Because part of our story is in the beginning, there were some, let's say we had different ideas about the potential of our future and, going based off of, magazines, all these things that are like, have your deal breakers and know your deal breakers and don't pursue a relationship if there's a deal breaker, blah, blah, blah. So part of it is that I knew for myself that I really wanted marriage at some point in my life. I didn't know if I wanted it with him yet, but I knew that that was something that I wanted to experience in this life. For him, that wasn't something that was ever of interest. Like you just didn't think that was going to happen.
I mean, I had a little bit of the Peter Pan kind of archetype running my life where it was just like, I'm never getting married, never having kids. I'm just going to do my thing. travel and have fun and whatever, fill in the blanks there.
So there were 3 sort of main arguments that we had our first year of being together, all centered around this specific thing. Because of my sort of conditioning that if somebody doesn't want marriage and you want marriage, then you should break up. Sort of plain and simple. And yet he would kind of come back with like, but we're so good together. Like, it's working so well. We have so much fun. We champion each other. Like, all these things are so good in our relationship. Why is that sort of this make or break when we're not even there yet? Like, we're not even at a point of like having a discussion about that. And then it all culminated with, what was it? Like maybe a month or a couple months before our 1-year anniversary. Or maybe it was just around our 1-year anniversary. We went to something and the topic came up and I got to this point where I was breaking up with him.
We went to like a relationship like seminar that happened to be somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah. And so it was, and it was really late at this point. It was like 1, 2 a.m. We're sitting on the couch. We had already adopted our dog together. And I'm having the conversation of, we're breaking up. What's going to happen with our dog, Rosie? We already lived together. So it was like, okay, where are you going to go live? Like, how is this all going to work? And Yerasimos falls asleep. To be fair,
as you do.
It was very late. Yeah. But I was really displeased with this experience. So I woke him up and I was like, I am breaking up with you. You have to be awake for this.
And I said,
sort of like sleepy, hypnotized sort of state, he goes, Sophie, we're both emotionally defined. Let's sleep on it and we'll see how we feel in the morning.
Yeah.
So good advice.
Luckily, I have enough understanding of human design at the time as well, where I was like, all right, fine. So we go to bed and we wake up in the morning and I was like, oh, thank God. I don't feel that way anymore at all. I don't want to break up. And it was the last time I ever tried to break up with him because it really just like, it emphasized so much. One of the biggest lessons in human design is knowing your authority. Your authority is how you make decisions. Both of us are emotionally defined authority beings, meaning that we make decisions based on our emotions over time. So there's no clarity in the now. And when you think you're so clear because you're so emotional about it, that is the opposite of when you should be making any decision whatsoever. So basically, there's sort of like this broad stroke, like wait about 24 hours on any big decisions because you want to feel your wave fully through a decision. You want to feel the decision on your high, you want to feel the decision on your low and in the middle. And when there's finally like a little bit of calmness within your body, and really, if you're emotionally defined, the goal is not 100%. The goal is like 75, 80. If you can get to 85, 90, like that's pretty insane. But like 75, 80% sure on a decision in a calm state, that's when you make your decisions. So I was very emotional the night before. I was crying. I was kind of hysterical, saying all the like, this isn't going to work because we don't want the same thing. So right. And luckily, thankfully, he was like, this is not the time to be making this big decision.
Yeah.
And something that I really love about human design is that it really flies in the face of a lot of sort of like the dogma or a lot of the sort of like the rules, if you will. And so, a lot of old sayings, like one of the main old ones is don't go to bed angry. And I actually joke, if you're emotionally defined, the best thing you can do is go to bed. If you're angry, just go to bed.
Interesting,
just
yeah.
Get out of, like, just stop, drop, roll away from everyone and anything. Like, nobody else needs to be in your wave. You need to just process this wave of emotion through your own system as much as you can before you're going to engage with the other person. And so that's a big piece of our beginning story with utilizing human design in our relationship.
Yeah, I think that's such a huge one. I think for anyone is the emotional center, just even on a collective scale, knowing that half the population have it defined and half have it undefined. When I learned human design, I literally wanted to go back through all my previous relationships and pull their charts so that I could see whether, because I have an open emotional center and so does Isaac actually. So I find, we don't generally tend to be really emotionally reactive, anymore.
Yeah.
Alexa,
but in our previous relationships.
You're self-projected projector, right?
Yeah. So I'm very open.
You can get more nuance. So like, so I'm emotionally defined on my own and Yerasimos is defined on his own. We also complete a channel together to the emotional center. So one of my favorite things is to look at composite charts of putting charts over each other for relational dynamics, because both people, and I don't know your guys' charts off the top of my head, but for anyone listening, you can both be undefined emotionally, but complete a channel together and become emotionally defined together. There's also this thing of in the dynamic of if one is non-emotionally defined and the other person is, the non-emotional will actually amplify the emotional wave of the other. So they will actually feel it way larger, and it may influence their decisions or how they're responding to things based on the other person's sort of like wave impacting them.
Yeah, I can definitely feel that. I mean, I've been told by a couple of different practitioners about that early on when I first came into contact with human design, about amplifying others' emotions. And that makes a lot of sense with some of my, the more messy relationships and what was going on. But not only that, but with men at work and stuff too, when we have disagreements or even good times when people are having a blast and I come in and I get super charged up and, let's take it up a notch. But really important to know in a dynamic relationship.
I think this one is huge to know, because I pulled my dad's human design for the first time maybe about a year or so ago, and he's emotionally defined and he's excuse me. So because my parents are in their house on the same property and we're up here, and mum and I are both projectors. My dad's a generator and my brother's a generator. But my brother hasn't obviously lived in the same house as us for a very long time. And he's also emotionally defined. And when I first pulled his chart, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense, because my mum always gets so affected. Well, mum and I especially always get so affected by his moods. And so that's what I love about human design, is just knowing this stuff. And like, it just gives you permission to like not have to attach or identify to these things, just knowing that that's the other person and that's how they operate. And it just gives you this separation from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's common that the non-emotionals actually are the ones who get labeled as the most emotional, right? In a dynamic, because they're the ones who are amplifying the emotions around them. And so even for you guys as open, there could be dynamics where if you're out and around a lot of emotional defined people and then you come back home, it's like your center may be kind of like filled up, right? In terms of like, you've been pulling in all that emotional energy around you. And so there's a process of like emptying out, like giving that energy away. And one of my favorite ways of doing that is asking your system, is this mine?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes your body will immediately respond to that. And it will kind of give you clarity on, is this actually energy that's mine that I need to process? Because it's not like you guys as non-emotionals don't have emotions. Everyone does. It's just part of life. It's just a different experience of them. And I would say different sort of like degrees, right? But it's sort of like you still have that energy. So there may be times when you're actually upset, or you're actually having sadness, or you're actually having, different things happen emotionally that's yours to deal with. But if you ask, is this mine? Your body can kind of go, oh, no, that's not mine. I can either just let it go really quickly, or it can literally just be like, not mine, is going to move through my body, but it's not. Like, there's less attachment to it, right? Than like, oh, I'm really sad. It's like, oh, I'm feeling some sadness, but it's not mine.
Yeah.
I can just let that move through me more organically, kind of thing.
Is there a risk for people to like bypass or try to like shirk dealing with something because you're like, oh, it's not my emotion, it's someone else's? Or is it pretty easy to, I don't know, just honestly just feel it like, yeah, it's not mine? I can see that being a danger for some.
Yeah, what I've heard is that it's pretty physically, like you can feel it as a non-emotional. Because I'm emotionally defined, I don't have that exact experience with the emotional center. I have that experience with my other open centers, especially the sacral. Like that's a place where I feel it a lot because I'm a projector, just like you, Alexa. And so I feel other people's sacral energy a lot. And I will know, oh, I'm filled up. Like I'm too full of other people's sacral energy. And then I will kind of ask my body. One of the really good hints about that for the emotional center specifically is if you feel the emotion all of a sudden. So if it's like you were calm, cool, and collected and like chill on your own, and then you walked into a room or you got into a conversation or you walked past somebody or whatever, and all of a sudden I was really angry. Or all of a sudden I felt really, sad, and it was out of nowhere. I don't know what happened. Most of the time for non-emotionally defined people, that's going to be you're picking up on someone else's stuff. For emotionally defined people, we can have our entire experiences and they don't have really anything to do with other people, and they don't need a trigger. Like we're just constantly on a wave. So I may wake up like a little bit down or a little low in my wave, and it doesn't have to have a reason. And so part of being emotionally defined, especially this is a big thing in relationship, like understanding that we're both on our own waves, our own timing of our waves, and we have different wave patterns. That's nitty gritty within the human design realm, but there's different patterns based on the emotional channels that are defined. And so if he's a little down or if he's feeling a certain way, I can kind of not take it as personally. Because I'm like, oh, he's on a wave. Now, if it had to do with me, then I trust that he will bring it up and we can have a conversation about it. But there's times when it's like, I'm just kind of in my own thing. It has no reason. It has nothing to do with him. Sometimes we'll check in and be like, hey, just checking. Is this me? Like, did I do something? Am I, do you need anything from me? And oftentimes it's just no, because we're well versed in like our own experience of like, no, this is just me on a wave. It has nothing to do with you. Go about your day, enjoy yourself. Like, because sometimes one of us is on a high and one of us is on a low.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of recognizing like, oh, we don't have to be the exact same way all the time, and it's fine.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you guys that just out of curiosity, do you have different waves? Because for people listening, there's 3 different emotional wave types. So you guys have different waves?
Yeah. Mine is what's known as ratchet. So I like build, and then I drop.
Crash, yeah.
Yeah, hers is a tribal wave. It's the 3740 channel.
Yeah. And what are you?
I have the source wave. It's the 59.6. So I have the channel of mating. So it's much more stable, except when in like bonding and relationship. So generally speaking, the 59.6 channel is it's just tends to be a little bit more stable.
Is that the wave? It kind of looks like a heartbeat. That's what it reminds me of. Like it's like kind of flat and then it spikes and then it comes down and then it spikes down.
This is more like a gentle wave.
Is the general one. The other one might be the it might be the collective wave. So actually,
we're both tribal.
It actually might be I think we have the tribal waves, the individual waves, the collective waves, and then there's the source wave, which is the 59.6. So I think the individual waves is the channel 1222 and 3955. They spend more. They appear more stable. They spend time in the middle of the wave, and then there's sudden spikes up and sudden spikes down. But
because I've got a friend that has that wave.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I definitely find that I tend to have a much more stable wave, except when it's when there's intimate relating going on. I think that's when things can be a little a little bit wonkier,
a little more like a ship on a troubled sea, or a little more activity. Would say
a good analogy, troubled, I think.
So what about for men that aren't, tuned in and very aware, but have this either defined or undefined emotional? Do you guys notice in your life through meeting people that, whether they're aware of human design or not, there's kind of that common trope that men kind of don't talk about their emotions, don't open up, stuff like that. Is that kind of do you think it's more of a undefined emotional center type male that doesn't talk about their emotions more because they're just not aware of it?
I don't think so. That just might be a general conditioning thing, but how the emotion plays out might look differently. Like you can not talk about your emotions, but some of these men then fucking explode. You know what I mean? And it could happen either way, because again, you could amplify, or it could just be, just the nature of your wave or the nature of your conditioning as a man growing up with a father that, called you a whole bunch of names if you were emotional. I mean, who knows? I think that's a general being a man growing up in a certain time kind of experience. So I don't know if I would be like, if I am having conversations with men, like I have a difficult time expressing my emotions, and automatically be like, oh, you're undefined or you're not defined. I think it depends. Because again, the nervous system lives in the solar plexus, in the emotional center. So it's great we can have this knowledge and we can have this information. And at the same time, like, it's not as easy as like, okay, great, I now know I'm an undefined emotional or an emotional person and everything's great. Like, we may have stuff to work through. We may have to like deal with shit and bring more regulation to our nervous system, because it's like, we want to make sure we're making decisions from a clear place. And yet if we're constantly sympathetic, or we're constantly, in like a shutdown state, like, are we able to get that clarity? You know what I mean? And so I think there's work that needs to be done. That being said, all this stuff, let's talk about human design, brings us to this place of just more self-knowledge. We want more self-knowledge, because then we can then start understanding ourselves in different ways, in the context of a relationship. I love learning human design for that reason. I mean, understanding your authority is huge. If your partner is an emotional authority and then the other one is a splenic authority, I mean, the emotional takes like the longest time, let's say, to make a decision. The splenic might know something in a second. So if you know this about yourself, you can allow your partner time. Or maybe you don't have to be so frustrated or think something's wrong with you if your other partner is making decisions super quickly. So like, so much of like having these tools, whether it's human design or astrology or any one of these systems that highlight our uniqueness, they allow us to have more compassion for self and more compassion for others. But most importantly, to go like, I don't need to force you, control you, coerce you. Hopefully you don't do that to me as well. We can just understand each other, respect each other, understand that we have differences, and allow each other to have those differences to a certain degree, of course. But especially in the decision-making realms, like Sophie was talking about earlier, we're both emotional authorities. We both have the waves. She'll be in a wave. Sometimes that'll trigger my wave. But it's really helped us. It's really helped us because we can just use that languaging and to kind of like, listen, I'm on a wave right now. I'm taking some time to be with myself because I don't want to lash out, but then that's what each individual needs to take responsibility for. Like, if you are an emotional being, if you understand the type of wave you have, if you are dysregulated, like, you might want to walk away before you say something that you're going to regret.
Yeah. That reminds me of this quote. I forget who said it, but it was, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And this goes into like another level of understanding of what that even means. Because I used to struggle with relationships and think, in the moment when we're arguing, I need to first seek to understand them in that moment. And then try to be understood. That's really, really hard to do. Probably impossible when you're heightened, when you're activated and all that.
When you're activated and you're heightened, man, like, that's the time to be like, time out and go in your corners. And actually, I say that, but that's like Sophie and I have a safe word. But it's more that if we're ever super triggered, either one of us has the ability to say time out or give the little T signal, and then we're done. There's no one can say anything. Now, you need two responsible, somewhat conscious beings to honor that, because you can make that agreement and then someone could go time out, and the other person would go, fuck that shit. We're not timing out. We're keeping this conversation going. And then it's like, okay, well, great. Nice to honor the ground rules that we set years ago,
Yeah.
So
when you need a referee.
Really helped. Yeah. That's helped us. Fortunately, we haven't had to use that more than maybe twice in our relationship, but it helped because if you know yourself,
know that it's there, right? Because it builds a sense of trust and containment. That there's an option that you've both already agreed to. Because as you're saying, like the prefrontal cortex goes offline as soon as you're in that state. And so it's really hard to come to like rational conversation, working things out in any kind of sort of like loving, compassionate way. And so it really is about like, how can you build that safety, build that trust, even in those harder times?
Yeah. And I think, go ahead, Yerasimos.
Okay. I was going to say, the thing is too, is that like people think their emotional reactions in the moment equate to truth. You know what I mean? Like, sure, it's an aspect of you, it's a part of you, but emotional intelligence happens over time, not in momentary reactivity. And so that's why it's so important to let these waves settle. It's like you go through the different points of the wave, you collect data points along the wave, and then hopefully, like Sophie said before, you get to a place of 80, 85, whatever % clarity. But people who are like, I'm fucking telling you my truth right now, and this is it, and you need to listen to me and honor me because this is real. It's coming out of me right now. Like, okay, It is real in the sense that you're having this experience, but whether or not it is rational from an emotional intelligence standpoint, meaning like you're understanding something over time, I don't know about that. So it's like, sure, we need to allow ourselves to have these experiences and not judge ourselves because sometimes you need conflict. Sometimes you need to fucking say what's on your mind in the moment. And then hopefully you can then reflect, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I was acting like a dickhead. I was insensitive. Maybe she's like, I was trying to control you. I'm sorry. So I'm not into repression.
Yeah, the repair.
Yeah, I'm not into repression. But at some point, if you're continuing to repeat the same patterns and like not honoring, let's say, an emotional authority if you have it, or just constantly be reactive to one another, like there's an issue there. But the repair is the most important, and the relationship grows from that. So we have our moments. Like I want her to express herself. I want her to say things to me. I want to be able to do that also. And then hopefully there's enough awareness and consciousness to step away, reflect, contemplate, and then come together and ultimately take responsibility for the role you played in whatever happened. And ideally both people are doing that to a certain degree. Sure, there are times where maybe one person is the initiator of something that was really fucked up, but most of the time it takes two to tango. There's something going on within the interpersonal dynamic that's causing something to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, there's so many things I want to say here, but I think what you said too about like with the emotional, especially emotional reactivity, I think that's universal. Like even for undefined emotional beings, it's the same thing is true for us. It's like you can feel the emotion and that's not who you are. It's just like how you're feeling about something at that point in time. And usually give it an hour, give it a day, give it however long you need, you usually feel different about it at some point in time. But I think in terms of relationship, it's so, so important to kind of set those boundaries, like you said, early on, especially early on in the relationship. I was just on a webinar last night. It's a women's series, and the topic was identity theft, like in relationships and how we can lose ourselves in relationships. And that was a big sort of theme that we talked about, was setting boundaries early on in the relationship, because in my previous relationship experience, that never happened. And so what tends to happen is you end up accepting behavior and things that you otherwise wouldn't, because it's never been talked about. And I think with that, like with, fights and arguments, it's so important to have, like you guys have that safe word or whatever, to know that, okay, well, if it ever gets to this point, we just need to stay, go apart or do whatever you need to do. It might be different for different relationships. I think that's such an important point. And again, regardless of human design specifically, I just think that's really important in relationship, is like laying the foundation, like set the tone for your relationship and then set boundaries around particular things like that.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. I have a question for both of you. You can answer separately if you want. what does intimacy mean?
God, we really switched gears there, didn't we?
I
Well, this is kind of around that topic, but I'm like, kind of the growth, the point is we can figure out how not to fight, but at the same time, cultivating intimacy to really ground the relationship. Like, but what is the target that you're aiming at? What is intimacy?
What is intimacy? Well, I think part of it is allowing yourself to be seen in the complexity of who you are as a person, you know? And I also just think there needs to be a level of vulnerability present for there to be intimacy. And I don't mean you have to sit there and cry, but just like this depth and sensitivity, when you're connecting with someone. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. If Sophie wants to add anything, she can.
Yeah, I mean, I think what comes to mind is I remember being taught like really early on in my 20s, I think is when I heard this. And I think it's probably all over the place now, but intimacy meaning into me see. And I think that really comes off of what Yerasimos was explaining of like allowing yourself to be seen and witnessed in the reality of who you are. And I think a big piece of that is you doing that for yourself first. Like you have to have a certain level of intimacy with yourself, a certain level of acceptance, in order to be able to let another one in, to be able to really see all of that stuff. Like all of us have stuff, right? Like we're all weirdos in certain ways or have quirks or have idiosyncrasies or all of these things. And it's like, can you allow yourself to be witnessed in the fullness of who you are and your being? I think just to pull in human design with that, I think that really, really helps because human design gives such a detailed and in-depth understanding of self. But then to have another person also be able to look at your chart or have conversations about it or discover different aspects of it together brings like a whole other level that's outside of like maybe your conscious understanding. And so, yeah, I think intimacy really comes down to first with yourself and then with another or others of how deeply can you be witnessed.
Yeah, you both put that so beautifully. I think that's so important. And actually that ties back into that, like setting the tone, laying the foundation and setting the tone for your relationship. Because that was a big thing for Isaac and I early on where we knew, like even just getting to know each other in the very early stages, that one, our relationship to ourself and doing our shadow work and all of that stuff always was going to come first, and then bringing that to the relationship. And I think that's why, like, and Isaac can probably relate to this too, compared to previous relationships, this one is so different, and it is this safe container for us to do that and witness each other in that. I'm getting cold shivers just saying it, because it is a really beautiful experience to share that with someone, and it does create true intimacy, because I think a lot of people hear the word intimacy and it's often referred to in terms of sexual intimacy, and that's what they think of. They think that it's, well, how, physically and sexually close am I with my partner? But it's so much more than that. And I love that Yerasimos pointed out vulnerability, because really that's the core of it. And so the degree to which you can be vulnerable with yourself is the degree to which you can be vulnerable with your partner. And unfortunately, so many people can't even have that vulnerability with themselves. And so then they operate from these really wounded parts of them that they've repressed and don't want to look at.
Yeah. Well, even that, I think it's also like how you can hold someone else's vulnerability, right? If you can hold your own vulnerability, you can hold someone else's to a greater degree. Whereas if you really can't be vulnerable with yourself, if you can't hold that space with yourself, you're not going to be able to do that with someone else. And that's going to really hinder the intimacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's such a pillar thing. That's like whatever the inverse of the pillar is. That's like the pitfall, I guess, of a lot of relationships is, particularly, I'll speak from my experience, me not being able to hold the intimacy with myself, or there's a part of me that I was ashamed to look at. And it wasn't even anything big and grotesque or anything. It was just like a weakness that I perceived, where I had this part of me that was softer, that was more emotional, that was sensitive, and wanted to be held, you know, like a little, like what I would call a feminine, like the feminine aspect of that. And just coming to terms with like, okay, I have a feminine piece, and maybe not even a whole side, but you know, a very, very important piece that I've been like shoving down and neglecting. That neglect is what I received in other relationships. And it was like, the more I did that, it was like, at this point, it's like, you know, Bugs Bunny with, you know, that cartoon where he puts the shotgun in the hole and then the shotgun comes up and points at his head. It was like that. I'm pushing it down and this thing's coming at me. And that forced me to deal with it. But it's such a reflection, and it's really, really important to look at.
Yeah. It's interesting. If you asked me that question like 25 years ago, I would have immediately went to like the physical and the sexual, and it didn't even come up for me. Like, when you asked me that, I wasn't even thinking that, you know, because like fucking is fucking, you know, there might not even be intimacy present, you know, it's just pure pleasure, giving, receiving pleasure, you know, in a certain way, if you know what I mean. Whereas I just feel like intimacy is a whole nother element. I feel like there's something slower and softer and like more sensual, even if you're bringing intimacy and even into like the sexual or the love making realms, if that makes sense. So, but even like you could be hanging with your homie and it could be intimate. You can just be like, you can be talking to them and being super present and talking about like, hey man, like I'm having a really tough time at home or work or whatever. And like, I just need to talk about this right now. Like it could be an intimate moment. You're there, they're holding for you. They're present. Or maybe they're even like, you know, saying something to inspire you or give you a kick in the ass, you know, but it's coming from this deep, like brotherly loving place, you know? So it's I don't know. The presence I feel like presence has to be there with intimacy. You know, you can't be like, I'm intimate, and then like you can't even focus, can't even listen, like you're all over the place. Like there has to be like, okay, I'm in a body. I understand I'm in a body. My feet are on the ground. I'm here with myself or with another person, connecting and paying attention and listening and there, you know, as opposed to like someone's talking and then you're like, oh, what am I gonna have for dinner tonight? Or did someone text me? Or you know what I mean? Like, so like I think presence, like intimacy lives within presence, and without presence, I don't know if you can truly be intimate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and this is a good segue into, because Sophie, you mentioned having, and I can totally relate as a projector, having an open sacral center, and we're both, you know, Yerasimos is a generator, Isaac's a manifesting generator, they're sacral beings, and definitely feeling that when you're just like filled up with this sacral energy, it's like it can get quite overwhelming. Actually, it's funny, about a month or so ago, I had my family visiting. So my brother's a generator, my sister-in-law's a manifesting generator, their baby's a manifesting generator, dad's a generator, Isaac's a man gen. And oh my God, I would just feel so overwhelmed at the end of the day because it was just so much energy. So and I guess I want to kind of go more into this, because this was introduced to me a little while after I learned about my human design, actually, about how the non-energy types, so projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, how it's really important for them to not just have time alone, but even sleep alone, so that they can allow their open centers to come back into that openness, especially in partnership when, you know, sharing a bed with someone that's an energy type, and if you're a non-energy type or vice versa, you may not get, you know, enough rest, or, you know, energetically speaking. But I think a common misconception is that it can quote unquote ruin the intimacy because you're not sharing the bed together. But I think, and we've only just started experimenting with this, but I think it actually can bring you closer because you're coming more from a place that's more you.
Yeah.
How are you building intimacy when you both are fucking asleep? You're asleep. You know what I mean? Like, so like, sure. Like before and after, I mean, Sophie and I go to bed together most of the time. And then, I get up, you know, 10 minutes later, 15 minutes or whatever, if we're just snuggling, and I just go to my room. You know what I mean? So like sleep is for sleep. You know, I want my rest. Like all the other stuff that can happen, you know, before I go to my bed, or and then the following morning I could go slip into bed with her. But I never, I like my room and my sleep time to be mine, you know, and I would think Sophie feels a similar way.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying that earlier that when this concept was first brought up to me, I was actually with a previous partner, and I was so aghast. I was so judgmental. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. What do you mean we shouldn't sleep together because he's a generator and I'm a projector? And this means we shouldn't be together because we have to sleep in the same bed because all people sleep in, you know, couples are supposed to sleep in the same bed. Like there's no wiggle room on this. That's just what happens.
Yeah.
And
kings and queens though.
Right. But I mean, the modern day is so conditioned into us, right? And if you're not sleeping, there's an issue, right? Like all of the sayings of like, oh, someone's on the couch. Like, I don't know, there's just so much stigma around it.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of conditioning around that. And then, you know, I tried it with this ex for like a week, and I was like, this is insane. This is amazing. I am never going back ever. Like no one's ever allowed to sleep in the same bed as me. And, you know, and it was really for me, a big piece of it was actually the codependency piece. Really helped me with that. I was way more codependent in sleeping in the same bedroom as someone. And I think it's a big piece of it is one, being a projector, I'm pulling in their sacral energy, which is such a large piece of who they are, into my being all night. Right. And so then if you're around each other during the day as well, like you're just constantly being conditioned into the other.
Yeah.
And especially for our projector auras, we're penetrating. Like we see deeply into the other. We are feeling deeply into the other. Anytime we're with them, we can't turn it off, right? It's like, it's our gift. It's beautiful. I love it. And at the same time, it's like, I need to just be on my own. Like I need to like get back to like my energy. I need to get back to what do I feel like on my own, because I'm constantly around others feeling all of their energies. Yeah. And I need I just need time where it's just like just me to really like clean out kind of thing. And so that was a huge deal when we came together, that I can't even remember which one of us like brought it up first. I think it was just in the dialogue.
We did it from the beginning because we were both, you know, somewhat new in our human design process about a decade or so ago, or even longer now. But yeah, I mean, I was into it from day one, and I love it. I still am. I mean, we go away. It's like when we go away, we're not getting 2 hotel rooms. You know, we most of the time get 2 beds. We get like 2 queens or 2 fulls or whatever. But occasionally we'll sleep together, and it's fine. It's not the end of the world. That being said, like I'm definitely way more tired when we sleep together. Yeah. I don't sleep as well. And especially for Sophie taking in that sacral energy, like that stuff can lead to burnout. And that's just, forget just sleeping together. Just like any open sacral being that's taking in that energy, that's the conditioning influence of like not knowing when enough is enough, you know, just going, and then you crash. You know, so it's important to understand that, like all the centers, you want to understand what's the potential for conditioning there and gain wisdom over time. And so we're fortunate enough to be like, yeah, we know ourselves. We understand this piece of self-knowledge, and like, let's have our own rooms. And we're fortunate we can have our own rooms, and that helps. But if you can't, even if you're listening and you can't have separate bedrooms for whatever reason, like, there's probably a couch, you know, that one person, I would probably say the man, can go, you know, like let the lady have her comfortable bed, like maybe 2-3 days sleep on the couch. Maybe that might shift things energetically.
Try it out.
But something Sophie and I say every morning's like fucking Christmas morning. You know, it's like we discover each other every morning. It's beautiful. We've been away from each other in our own space, and all of a sudden, you know, I come into her room and she's there, and it's like, oh. It's
I can't
and
help
you're
but feel like this.
excited to see each other, right? It's like it gets rid of any arguments of like you were snoring or you took the covers or all these classic things that people deal with or like have these gripes with their partners, and it's like I could have a restless night and it's not affecting him at all, or vice versa.
Or people that are on different schedules, like one partner has to get up for 5 a.m. to go to work. The other one has, it's just kind of defeats. It takes that away. There's all these extra potential issues and problems that you don't have to deal with when you sleep in your own space. And like I said earlier, I was making a joke, but like, kings and queens, they had their own quarters. Again, I understand that everyone's allowed to have the West Wing and the East Wing and the castle, but you can try to make it work as best as you can. And I definitely think with the energy being and the non-energy being, it's even more important.
Yeah. Well, my mind's turning with the possibilities of just like performance or like effectiveness or productivity or whatever. Just if you're not getting enough rest, think of it collectively over time. How are you going to show up at work? How are you going to show up in your business or your practice versus someone that just has maybe like a 2-degree tilt more in their favor where they're getting just 2% more, but over a decade, think of the results.
Look, if you're a fan of sports, now as time goes on with athletics, every inch matters. Every percentage point matters, So forget being an athlete.
We do millimeters here, so.
Well, yeah, there you go. Right. Like you said, in productivity, what can you do to support your health and support the working of your mind, how you show up? But beyond that, as you were talking, it just made me think, how many car accidents potentially could be prevented from someone who maybe didn't get enough sleep because of, I'm not saying it's all because of you're sleeping with your partner, but you never know. Let's say you got better sleep that night and then you had to work 2 shifts and then you had to drive home at night. How many accidents happen when someone falls asleep at the wheel? What if that person got better sleep the night before? Now I'm just throwing out all these possibilities because I just think sleep is at the foundation of health. Talk to anybody when it comes to health, whether it's an allopathic practitioner or a naturopathic practitioner. I think everyone can agree you need fucking good sleep.
Yeah.
And I would say also, in terms of the, I think there's a lot of stigma around it of you're not intimate anymore, right? There's no connection or
big.
all this stuff.
I felt that.
And I feel like it's actually the opposite. I feel like there's more intimacy, more connection because we're more mindful of okay, we're getting in bed at the same time. We're spending time together. He comes and says good. He generally gets up earlier than me. So he comes in, he wakes me up. We have a little time together, instead of it's just given that we're going to be in bed together. Right. I know so many couples where it's they get in bed, but they go to bed at different times or they're sleeping next to each other and that's it. And it's sort of but we're sleeping next to each other. That's intimate, or that's, that keeps us together. That's something. It's no, it doesn't. You're asleep. Yeah. Nothing's happening. You're not constantly with the other person.
Yeah. And how many couples do we know that have spent 20, 30 years sleeping in the same bed and they still end up getting divorced because their relationship is horrible? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's sometimes you just need it's healthy to have space in relationship. And I think there's a lot of, you have to figure that out for yourself. I think every relationship is individual in that of how much time and space do you need? How's your flow? And I think it's getting rid of any of the ideas of how it's supposed to be. This works for us. I have heard that it's really helpful for non-energy types and energy types to just have this awareness around it. Now, if that's not possible, can you have a little bit more space during the day maybe? Or when can you kind of come back to yourself, both as an energy and a non-energy of just as individuals? Because at the end of the day, I think relationships really fall apart when it's so completely enmeshed that there isn't any differentiation anymore. And then you're just kind of there with the other person.
Yeah, I just want to add to and it's piggybacks a little bit on what Sophie said. I love human design. It's great. It's a system of knowledge. It gives you some tools, but you're not required to know it. Like there are probably lots of relationships that have been successful without knowing human design, and even with what we're talking about now, like experiment for yourself if you like. You don't have to be into it. You might try and be like, I don't know, my partner and I want to sleep together. Cool. Do that.
Yeah.
Like Sophie said, we love it. And it allows us to honor each other's individuality, I think, more. She has her space. And on top of that, Sophie, I mean, human design wise, it aligns, but she likes more strict AM routines and PM routines. I'm not into routines. Like my day starts differently in a lot of, all the time. Sophie is very strict with her routines. And so even sleeping separately, that's great. Like go do your thing, get up when you get up, go into your bathroom, do your face routine, whatever it is that you do. And I'm just going to be buzzing around like the generator I am, doing what I'm doing. So it does create that space that I like. And I just let her do her thing.
Yeah. We're a bit the same.
Human design can help understand each other a little bit more in these kind of nuanced ways of, even as you just said, that example, Yerasimos, that was a thing for us kind of early, because there's so much, a lot of teachings are around, you're supposed to have a morning routine and you're supposed to blah, blah, blah. You're supposed to wake up and do the same things. Da, 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 da. And Yerasimos had a hard time with that. And because that's so natural to me, I was judging him harshly, I think, for the first year, or I don't know how long, until we figured this out, until I looked at this detail. But I was like, I don't understand why it's so hard. You just get up, you do the same thing. It's not rocket science. I was just like, I don't get it. And so I was judging him, and then he was like, I don't understand why I can't do this. It's just not working. And then we looked at this one particular piece of our human designs, and it really is I'm designed to have a routine. That really, really works for me. He is literally designed the opposite. He is literally designed not to have a routine. And so I do think sometimes human design comes in handy in that way of I was bashing my head against a brick wall trying to control him, judging him that he should be different than he is because of how I am. And it's learning that and being that's ridiculous. He can be his own person, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
He can do his own thing. That doesn't make him less spiritual. That doesn't make him less whatever. It's just oh, we literally work differently.
Yeah.
And there's ways that you can obviously come to understand that and be much more in flow with that without the human design background. I think that helped us, though. It was some of it helped me at least let go of more of that control and just having more of that understanding.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, the conversation that we've been having lately, Sophie and I, but especially Joel. Joel's my business partner, you guys know, but we've been having conversation around this idea of freedom, we have, we're in this freedom community and we're advocating for freedom, and yet we're fucking tyrannical to our partners and we're tyrannical to our children. I'm not saying us specifically, but in general, it's this need to control, this need to kind of put rules on people. And it's man, we gotta take a look at that inner tyrant that we have, towards ourselves and towards others before we start just kind of worrying about what they, quote unquote, they are doing to us. So it's an interesting thing, when we think about freedom, how does that relate to the different areas of our life and the different relationships? And so human design has definitely supported us to really just understand and acknowledge the individuality of the person, something I said earlier. And I love that. I just really, really enjoy it. And even understanding that she's a non-energy being in the beginning, I was like, I don't understand. Can't you just have more energy, But and it was really funny. It was really funny too, because we have this joke, in the beginning of our relationship in our old place, we had 2 levels in our own place. And, I would just run up and down the stairs. Oh, I forgot my charger. Oh, I forgot my headphones, back and forth. And Sophie's like, I don't understand how you don't just think of all the things that you need for the day when you come down and just bring it down. Whereas
one day I'm exhausted watching you. What are you doing?
Oh my God, this sounds so much like us. It's so funny.
When we would go to the grocery store, Sophie's like, I have to like put like 3 bags on my one arm, 3 bags on my left arm, and take 1 trip from the car to like our home. I'm like, I'll just go in and out and pick up bags. Like she's like, no, I must take only 1 trip. You know?
What's great is now I get to be like, hey babe, you have to go get the stuff from the car.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. I totally agree with human design. The level of understanding and compassion, not only for myself but others, that human design has brought is I've not really found any other system before that has that level of, like, astrology is a little bit like that, but I think astrology, I guess, I don't know, because they say, you know, like human design is more yang. There's a lot of structure to it. Astrology is a little bit more open to interpretation, and like there's so many different aspects of the chart. I mean, same as human design, but I just find like with human design, you can just focus on sort of the main things, some of the main things without getting too deep. And it just gives you so much more understanding of the other person, because with Isaac, like, we're such different people on so many levels. Like, we have all of the sort of the baseline stuff, like our values and our vision for our life, and all of that is like down pat. We're so aligned. But who we are as people is so extremely different in so many ways. And had it not been for human design, I honestly feel like I'd be more like, I'd get more annoyed about the little things about him that if I didn't have that understanding, I'd be like, why is he like that? That's so annoying. And some things still kind of drive me a little crazy, but like, you know, he's a 3-line, right? You're a 3-line too, Soph. And he's like, he learns through trial and error. So he has to make mistakes. And sometimes it's so frustrating because, well, and he's also a man gen. So skipping steps is very common. And like, for me, it's so frustrating because I'm just like, just do it step by step and, you know, just get what you need to get and like do it the first time and get it right. And like, obviously I'm not like that all the time either, but I'm not as experimental as Isaac is. So, and we just operate so differently. Like, our creative process is very different. It just so many things, but I find that thanks to human design, I can recognize that part of him and just like, oh, that's just how he is. And I think it's a big one too for people that, how we kind of expect other people to be like us as well and like think like us. And so it can, give that level of understanding too, where it's just like, well, I'm me and they're them and we can be different and it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah. And actually, and I just wanted to say too, just rewinding a little bit back to the like sleeping separately, I actually spoke to a human design analyst recently about this. And she actually said that, she said, even in a partnership, if you were 2 non-energy types, it can still be really helpful to sleep separately, because depending on your defined and open centers, even if you're both non-energy, if you've, you know, one's got defined centers that the other one has undefined, it just helps to allow them to go back to that open, like their open centers. So it can go for anyone. And, you know, like you guys said, and like we say, human design is an experiment. So you got to experiment with it for yourself.
Like if you were to ask me like my strong convictions, I would be like, I think everyone should sleep by themselves. Like it's my opinion, of course, because it's like, man, that's good sleep and space. But I get it. People are different, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
and I've heard this saying, like,
my opinion.
Yeah. I can't remember what the actual saying, but it's something to the effect of like big houses where people have the option of staying in separate rooms. They just drift apart and they call them like divorce houses or divorce mansion or something like that. But I think it's really important, like the attitude of the heart and what your intention is for doing that. Because my last relationship fell apart about that way, where it was a big house. She lived on a separate side of the house and we're trying to work through our issues, but there was no repair afterwards. So she had her place to go and sort of kind of close herself off to the world, but that was where she was staying closed off instead of trying to like open back up and make the connections. It was, it just made it hard to do that. But it's like, would it have been better if we stayed in the same room and just toughed it out or something? Probably not. It probably would have been a lot more of the same, just closer in proximity.
I think that also goes off of what I was saying with like, it can force more consciousness, right? To be together and to make the conscious effort. of being together. But I think what you're saying of like this like retreat to your own space, but then there's no repair afterwards. Like even when Yerasimos was talking earlier about our like timeout thing, or just understanding like, oh, we're both on emotional waves. Like this is when we need to like not be in the argument or having this conversation. We need to take like time away from each other to like process what's happening. I think there is a piece, it's really important, like you guys were talking about that repair piece, like you're not going away and taking space to numb out or to dissociate or to pretend like it's not happening or that it didn't happen or that it's not a thing. You have to do your work. You have to like really sit with it. You have to process what's happening on your own. And then you come back together. And then you have a debrief or you have the repair that needs to happen afterwards where you both do have more intimacy. There's more understanding. There's more connection. There's more like togetherness in that. If you're using the space as like, oh, I'm just going to peace out. And then we're just going to pretend like it didn't happen. Then we're just going to pretend like everything's fine because we've both cooled off enough that we can just be in the same place, but there's no actual relating or repair from the disruption, then it's going to disintegrate whether you're in the same bedroom or not. That's just I think a fundamental of relationship is that there has to be a coming back together. And we joke about it all the time because there's like certain mornings where we'll end up in bed and we're just like talking and it can feel like we've been chatting for like 15 minutes. Then we'll look at the clock or whatever and be like, oh my God, we have stuff we have to do or we missed something or it's like hours later. But it's like these debrief periods, right? Or these times of like, you're just kind of lost in connection with each other. And sometimes that's even after an argument or after a disruption. We need the time to like come back together and be like, what on earth happened? What is going on? What was me? What was you? How are we going to move forward with this? How are we going to discuss like, what we're going to choose differently? Yeah. How am I going to show up differently? How are you going to show up differently? What triggered what? Like, there's that sort of like excavation that can happen afterwards when you're not in the heat of it, because in the heat of it, it's not happening. You can think that you're, as he was saying, like in the truth and in the moment. And it's like, no, don't make decisions. Just but you do have to be responsible for doing your own work. Yeah. You do have to feel your own, you do have to process what's happening.
Yeah. And being responsible, even if like, let's say you're not in a situation where you can sleep in separate rooms and you don't have a couch like ours is. Like, let's say we didn't have access to your parents' house. It was just us in the cabin. There's no way I'm going to sleep on that couch. It's like this big. So it's like I can sleep on the floor, but I'm like, at the same time though, you're responsible for doing the work regardless of having the ideal situation.
Of course.
Absolutely.
So if you're, having troubles or let's say like I think it really kind of benefits. It depends again, how you approach it, how you approach the work, or if you even do. But there's been times where you were feeling really overwhelmed and there's a lot going on, but that did lead you to do some Psych K balances that shifted some things or sought out another type, like what is really going on? Like it's, you're feeling overwhelmed, but there's also a root thing below that makes it more like,
it's not about like blaming the other person. Like, I'm just taking in all your sacral energy and you're too much. And like, it's not about that. It's like, yes, that's an element of it. It can be an element of it. But it's also, just taking responsibility like for your own stuff and what's coming up.
Or and outside of that, like just knowing that you need to go in nature more and get more sunlight and take a walk by yourself and like move the body, get some exercise, like that kind of stuff too will sort of, if you don't do that, if you neglect that, it'll show up almost like a focal point, in your sleep or in the bedroom or whatever.
I was going to say, I do think like human design or any of these kinds of systems, right? Or anything can be used. And I think I did this a bit at the beginning of human design, especially of like, I'm a victim to my design, and I'm just a projector, and so I can't be around all this. I'm just tired because
I don't have energy. I don't have energy to do things.
Right. Versus really understanding, like, this can be really empowering, and it really takes a lot more self-understanding and independent, like, I don't know, just understanding for yourself of like, I'm in control of this.
Yeah.
I'm in control of this. It's not his fault. He's not doing anything wrong or bad or whatever.
Never.
I need to take responsibility. I need to take responsibility. I have this understanding. I know myself. It's my responsibility to take care of myself. It's my responsibility to nap if I'm way overtired. It's my responsibility to like take time away from others. It's my, like, all of these things, it's my responsibility to take care of myself in these ways because I have this knowledge. Yeah. I'm not a victim to the knowledge. I now have responsibility to take care of myself in the ways that I know work. And that's, I mean, again, this is human design, non-human design. Anyone can figure out what works for them and what doesn't, but it's not someone else's responsibility that you're not doing it.
Yeah. That's such a good point to make, because I think it's funny because I was having a conversation with someone recently about like astrology, and it's to say, like, I think some people do, like, we often talk about, we know so many Aries women that like don't want to be Aries women or like get defensive about being an Aries woman. And it's just really funny because it's like, yeah, you're not a victim to it. Like, it's an archetype and it's not all bad. Like, everything has a shadow side. So if more of the shadow side is coming out, then you need to look at some stuff. But that can happen with regardless of what sign you are or what human design you are, or like anything like that. So yeah, that's such a good point to make, especially for, I think, like, because I imagine we spoke to recently a reflector. And I was like, what's it like being a reflector? Because I remember when I first learned about human design and learning about reflectors, I remember thinking, God, I don't think I could handle being a reflector. Like, that must be really awful, like just being so open and taking everyone's stuff in. And I think because I already am so open, like thinking but then like hearing her perspective and how she experiences it, it's a gift. Like, we all have a gift within our design and within who we are. And so it's not about being a victim to these things that might be a bit more of a challenge or a struggle. It's just knowing how to navigate them and how to deal with them.
Yeah.
And ultimately it's about self-love and self-acceptance. So if you're someone, I hate my chart, I wish it, then you got some work to do. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
In my opinion. So I love being a 5/1 emotional generator. I don't want to be anything else, and I just think, and that's whether it's human design or not, it's like, how do you get to that place where you love that you exist? You love that you are an incarnation, that you have a body, that you're here, like, I mean, I think that's foundational, whether you know fucking human design or not. But I think human design is a tool that can help you there. And something you said earlier too, like, a lot of these systems, gene keys, astrology, they're great. They have a lot of things to offer in different ways. I like the certain simple things about human design, which are like type, strategy, authority, especially strategy and authority. Yeah. I just like that there's like something I can hang my hat on. There's a unique way for me to move through the world. There's a unique way for me to make decisions. I mean, when you think about life, outside of some things maybe out of your control, who you are today is a fucking amalgamation of every single choice that you made in your life. So if you have the ability or knowledge that supports you to make better decisions, or decisions that are more aligned for you, then awesome. That's why I like human design. When I found out I was an emotional authority, like, my moods didn't affect me as much. Like, I didn't mind my moods. You know what I mean? When I was on a wave, like years ago, I might be like, this is it. This is my whole life. Because when you're in it, you're in it. You don't think like it's going to change. And so that's why people blow up their lives. They end relationships. They quit jobs. They tell people to go fuck themselves. They break shit. And it's like, well, if you just waited, or if you had the capacity to wait, that maybe your life would look different. And so it allowed me to just kind of like have more compassion for myself, and even have this like saying in my head, oh, I'm on a wave. This will pass. I'm not going to stay like this forever. I'm not going to be down in the dumps, or I'm not going to be super lit up about something like forever. Like it's just it allowed me to just kind of flow more. And like I said earlier, ride the wave. And I really appreciate that aspect of human design.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, super helpful.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, do you guys have any other centers that like one person has defined and the other one doesn't? Like Yerasimos, do you have any?
This is the perfect one to get. This is the perfect one to get into. We can talk about
let's do it.
We can talk about the
throat.
throat.
Okay. So who's defined? Who's undefined?
I'm undefined.
Sophie's
defined.
So, right. So how does that play out?
So the defined throat is, the throat is all about, expression and bringing things out into the world, communicating, doing, speaking, etc. And people with a defined throat have a more consistent way of doing that. People with an undefined throat are inconsistent in that regards. And so Sophie's pressure from her defined throat conditions my undefined throat, and it makes me extra chatty. I would say I
joke in the beginning of our relationship though, because, and we still joke about it now, of like, because again, with this open, defined dynamic, my defined throat is often putting pressure on his undefined throat.
We got three defined throats here and me. So I notice, I feel the pressure, and I'm consciously being like, just breathe, chill, shut the fuck up, let people talk, because I can just keep talking. But that's one of the gifts too of the defined throat. It facilitates the undefined throat to speak. But the undefined throat needs to not speak out of turn, needs to wait, the conditioning influence for the undefined throat is wanting to attract attention. So it's like, I need to talk. People aren't going to notice me. I need to say what I need to say. So on that note, I'll zip it.
You're doing well, Yerasimos. You're doing well.
It's taken a lot of practice.
It's been a long-term conditioning factor for Yerasimos. He has two parents with defined throats. His manifestors.
Wow.
And his brother.
Isn't it like 70% of the population have a defined throat?
I don't even know what the percentages are. I don't think it's that much, but maybe
might be another. I think it's the throat. I think it's about 70% of the population. I could be wrong. Actually, I'm going to quickly look it up now because I'm curious. But go ahead, Soph.
It makes sense if you add up the manifestors, the MGs, and the self-projector. There's projectors who have defined throats as well, so it makes sense. But yeah, it's just something to be aware of, right? And in dynamic. And at the beginning, I was like, when I found out, when I was like looking at that and research, I was like, this is ridiculous. He talks so much more than me. And I'm the defined throat. And then I was like, oh, it's because I'm literally putting pressure on him to like talk, to like go. But my conditioning was the opposite. My conditioning was to close my throat and not talk. His conditioning was he was around all these defined throats. And so his conditioning is to talk to get rid of the pressure. And so it was this interesting dynamic that we just have to be aware of like, he's more apt to talk. He's also more extroverted. He's, actor, and that's just more of his MO.
Gemini.
Right. Yeah. Whereas like for me, that's still just a little bit more difficult for me to like really own. And so, it's just something to be aware of in our dynamic. And so we've come up with little like signals or little things where it's like, if we're in like a group or something like that, and he's extra chatty and I haven't been able to get a word in, it's like, oh, we'll just do a little signal. And it's like, oh, okay. Like it's again, taking out the judgment of it. That this is just like, this is a natural thing that would be happening with defined and undefined. He's not doing anything wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's just to be mindful of it, like extra mindful of it, extra aware of it. Again, taking responsibility. Like it's my responsibility to take up a little bit more space or to do this little signal so I can be like, hey, I want to say things too, right? Like it's my responsibility to do that. I know this dynamic. Yeah.
Alexa, you were right. According to my quick research, 72% have a defined.
Yeah, I just looked it up too.
And 28% have undefined.
Undefined.
I didn't think it was that. that much.
Yeah, well, that's because I remember
I don't meet that many undefined. Yeah,
exactly, and that's why it actually stuck with me when I first learned it, because I was like, oh, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense, because it's the only manifestation center of all the 9 centers, and so that's why I'm like, pretty much all manifesting generators have a defined throat, right? And then it just depends on.
All MGs and all manifestors have to have a defined throat. That's
right. And that's a large portion. And then I meet a lot of projectors that have defined throats. So yeah, it's interesting how it plays out. And out of curiosity, Yerasimos, does Joel have a defined throat?
Yeah, he does.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you're definitely in the minority. So you would, most people would have it defined. So yeah, that's why I was interested to see how it plays out with you guys.
Well, it's really interesting too, because when I learned this about myself, I would have like a friend come over, and I started noticing the subtlety of like feeling this pressure. And I would, if I knew their chart, I'd go, oh, that's why. But if I didn't, I'd look it up, and I would say every time the person had a defined throat. Because again, like so much of this work in general is like learning the subtle somatic kind of expression or sensations that you're feeling that like tell you something about yourself. So, knowing human design, being connected to the subtleties of my body, like I'm around people, I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, cool. I'm around 5 people that have a defined throat, and I'm feeling this pressure to talk. Now, in some ways, there's a benefit to it, but I have to check myself and know when the right time is. Now, the benefits of an undefined throat, like you have more fluidity and flexibility in your voice. You're almost like a voice chameleon in a sense. Some of the greatest orators had undefined throats. They can ride the wave of their audience. And, so there's no good or bad. It's just different. But this podcast is about relating, understanding in your relationship where one person is defined and the other person is open is very, very important. And so the emotional center is huge. I mean, you can talk about all the other ones as well, but for Sophie and I, the throat was a big piece, because she's defined there and I'm undefined there.
Yeah.
Another one for us is ego. So I'm defined in my ego or my first partner, and Yerasimos isn't. And so when Yerasimos was just touching on like really getting fine tuned with yourself of like, what are these little somatic sensations or cues for me of like when a center is certain like activated more, right? Or pulled in, or when I'm like moving more from that energy. A big thing for me is understanding when my will center has been activated in something, because that center gives me a little bit more of a manifestor energy in my field, because it just is this will center. It's going to happen. And so I have to understand like, oh, that just turned on for me. There's more pressure within my system. That doesn't mean that he's going to feel that he's going to go along with that. Does that make sense? Like that's somewhere where I notice that like this energy comes forward and it's like, it has to get done and it has to get done now. And for him, like me letting go of like, he doesn't have that, and he doesn't have to be at the will of my will, if that makes sense, right? It's again that like dynamic, letting him be him. And for him, understanding, like he has joked that like there's like a glint in my eye that shifts when like, my ego center is defined. And it is this sort of energy of like, either get on board and help me or get out of my way.
I just get out of her way. I get out of her way, especially when it's 2 a.m. and she thinks there's a mouse and she needs to take out everything in the closet and take everything out in the closet to find the mouse and then put it back in. I'm like, have fun.
That is an actual example that happened. I think our first year of living in this new house, there was a mouse, and I saw it go in my closet because our dog growled and woke me up, and so I saw the mouse go in it. Now, this is another benefit of having separate rooms. I woke him up because I was doing all of this work.
Well, I had to help her for a little bit, and then I was like, no. Like, this is your battle. This is your battle. This is your war.
Yeah. He got to go back to bed and have like an actual night's sleep, right? He wasn't at the whim of me being like, it's 3 a.m. and I have to find this mouse and I have to take every single thing out of this closet right now and put it on this bed. If he was in that bed, it would be way more disruptive, right? But like just understanding each other's like these subtle shifts in someone, and that you then again have that responsibility of like, how am I going to respond to this?
Yeah.
How am I going to interact with what's happening for them? And how am I going to react to what's happening in me, and how that doesn't have to actually he doesn't have to agree with what I'm doing or what's happening for me.
Yeah.
But I can honor myself.
Super
right?
important.
I can honor me and he can honor himself, and like really letting that go. I mean, that was another big thing of like the projector generator thing is like frustration for a generator, right? Or a manifesting generator and a generator. If they go against their yes and no, they're going to be frustrated. There's nothing worse for a projector than frustrated generators, especially when we live on a planet with like a predominance of frustrated generators, because all of you generators are so beautiful and you're big, bold, wonderful, juicy, sacral energy that's really meant to be channeled into creating like what you want to do. And yet all of the conditioning is like, no, you're supposed to do for others, and you're supposed to do what's, demanded of you, and blah, 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 because you can. And so we have this like extreme overabundance, extreme predominance of frustration on the planet. And all of us non-energies are the ones sucking it up. And then we feel like crap too, right? And again, this isn't a victim thing, but it's like, how can you champion the generators around you, the manifesting generators and then generators? How can you champion them around you to follow themselves, to use their energy correctly, to be satisfied selfishly, so that I can be around satisfied generators? I want you to be satisfied, but at the end of the day, I also want to take care of myself, and I don't want to be pulling in frustrated energy. So a big thing in our relationship was me letting go. Again, this is constant, story of like me having to let go of these demands on him. But like, if he has a no to something, I do not make them do the thing. Do not make them engage in whatever it is that they don't want to do, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be around a frustrated generator. Like, why am I going to do that? I'm hindering him. I'm shooting myself in the foot. Like, it's just a mess. Like, let the generator do what they want to do in their, like, what lights them up. Let them do what lights them up, because we benefit.
She's gotten much better over the years. Just letting me be me. No, but I mean, like, it's great because I'm going to do what I want to do. I might need some clarity to get to it as an emotional authority, but like,
that's a big one, I think.
Yeah, if you invite me out for something I don't want to go to, imagine like her guilt tripping me or trying to manipulate me into coming to something that I don't want to be at, and then like I'm there and I'm fucking probably annoyed or whatever. Like, no, go do your thing, go have fun, go hang out with your friends, or go to that event. I'm gonna stay here and do something I want to do. And
that resonates for me. Yeah, that resonates for me so much, because again, like I was sort of doing this stuff before, not knowing my human design, but knowing like as a projector, we're here to guide others. And also my incarnation cross is about showing people the way, but not doing it for them, just showing them, like sort of leading by example kind of thing. And what I used to do though, especially in relationships, was like, you should do this. And like, you need to like, you need to heal and fix yourself. And so you should do these things and do this. And I was like, like you say, Sophie, like kind of trying to control, but not from a place of like wanting to control them. It was from a place of love, but it was like this, and wanting to sort of guide them, but guide them more forcefully. And, knowing that too with generators, because I'm so conscious of this with Isaac, is that it is so important for them to do what lights them up. And so if you're telling them, oh, you should do this, you should do this, and then they listen to you and they're going and doing something they hate, they are going to be like pretty miserable, and it's not a nice energy to be around. And so now, even if he's doing things like, especially in like the business, sometimes he'll do things where I'm just like, this is such a waste of time. Like, I can't believe he's doing this. And I just don't even say anything. So I'm like, you know what? If he's enjoying it, if he thinks that he needs to be doing this right now, just let him be.
Well, and there's also a piece of this of like, right, projectors have to be invited. So we can be in relationship and we can see all the things, but if we haven't been invited, we're out of alignment. We're stepping out of integrity within that, and it's not going to be received well. I mean, that's another thing of like, because I think this was, both of us had to get better, right, at this like understanding of he's gotten better at being clear in his yes and no, letting like the generator, I mean, all types, all people, but especially generators have to get rid of this like people pleasing. Oh, I can. And so I will. So he's had to do that at the same time as I've had to like sort of let go of like but you should be pleasing me. You should be wanting to come to this thing with me because I want to go to it and I want you to come with me. Right. And like, there's times when, you know, values wise, you know, that age old saying, happy wife, happy life. Well, it goes both ways. It's happy husband, happy life as well. It just doesn't rhyme as well. But it's like understanding that there's times when I'm going to do something that he wants to do that maybe I don't necessarily want to do, but my value is something around that, right? Of like selfishly, I'm going to do because that's going to play better for the relationship. Same for him. Occasionally you're going to do that. But if you're consistently doing that, if you're always doing that, if you're unconsciously doing that, if you're building that frustration and resentment unconsciously or underneath and you're not really expressing it, it's not going to go well, whether you know human design or you don't know human design. That's a basic thing. And I will say with that as well, like you can know human design and not be implementing it, right? Like we knew human design early in our relationship. We knew it before we got together. We continually still excavate things, continually still like look at new things within our charts. And we're both like, you know, over a decade into this and over a decade into our relationship. And it's like, you're still trying to like, okay, where am I still doing the things? Where am I still looking at things in a different way, or, you know, like just excavating it and implementing it, right? Because you can know this information and just be like, oh, because I know it, it's happening. Like, no, it's an experiment. You actually have to like engage in it. You actually have to like put yourself in it and try it out and try it on. As we're saying, even with the sleeping thing and all of the different things, it's like, try it.
Yeah.
If it works, work it. If it doesn't work, I don't fucking care. Do something else. Do what works for you, whether it's human design or whatever it is. This is something that has given us a common language and a common way of understanding each other in certain ways and ourselves in certain ways that just has worked for us, right? But if it didn't work, I just wouldn't use it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really, I do think it also comes down to like, you have to be willing again to like look at your stuff.
Yeah.
And really take responsibility at the end of the day of like, no, I don't want to be at a party with a frustrated generator. So I'm not going to make you come with me. Right? Like,
yeah. And it goes both ways, hey, because I remember like in previous relationships, one in particular where it was super codependent. And so I would go to things with him because I was so insecure and I didn't trust him and the people that he was with, that I would go and I would not be having a good time because I had really no interest in being there other than to like babysit him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A bitter projector is not a fun thing. No. I mean, even as a projector, I don't want to be around myself when I'm bitter. And I definitely want to be around other projectors when they're bitter. And he doesn't want to be around me when like nobody wants that.
The other thing with projectors too, I found is that like they say yes to a lot of invitations because they're being invited. So they'll overextend themselves, go to things. And it's like, well, does that really resonate with you? Or are you just going because someone's inviting you? Because again, you know, it's like projectors want to be recognized. Oh, someone's recognizing me. They're inviting me to something. Well, let me just go. But like, should you even go to that thing? Should you say yes? So, you know, yeses and nos are at the foundation of our lives. And knowing how to better say yes or better say no's leads to the things that we want. Let's say success for generators, success for projectors, satisfaction for generators, etc.
Yeah.
And that again gives you a common language that takes a bit of like the judgment out of it or something of like, if I say yes to an invitation or if I'm pondering an invitation or something, he can literally ask me like, do you want to say yes just because you feel recognized and invited, or do you actually want to go? Right. Or like, I can ask him things like, you know, what's your, give options. Like, it's just a common, like, I can ask these questions without being like, why would you say yes to that, stupid? Like, you know, like it's like, oh, I understand, you know, you have this deeper motivation within your being as a projector that you love being invited and want to be recognized. So I can understand where that motivation is coming from and ask this question instead of like, he's just a different type. So he's going to be like, why are you even thinking about this? Right. Like it can kind of like the tone can shift in how you're going to relate to each other, asking questions or getting to know them or, you know, helping them feel the truth of themselves as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So critical. You know, this whole time talking about these different, you know, strategies for knowing yourself, how important it is. It just kept popping into my head, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. But if you replace war with like marriage or relationship, and we replace enemy with your partner or spouse, and the goals shift, but it's like the strategies are actually really similar. So one of the precepts in that book is if you know yourself and not your enemy, you'll be victorious in half the battles. If you know yourself and your enemy, you'll be victorious in every battle. And if it's not a battle, but there's a reason why. Maybe subconsciously there's a reason why they have the all's fair in love and war, and the love and war kind of have this relationship. But I was like, man, that is kind of interesting. If you switch that up, knowing yourself is very, very important. Knowing your partner will create a situation of even more dynamic and more abundance in your relationship.
Yeah, and just being able to honor like individuality. Like I think codependency in relationships is such a huge thing. Like Isaac and I have both been through it in our previous relationships. I speak to so many other, especially women. It's just so common. And I think that's why like there's this disconnect when it comes to honoring each other's individuality, because they just want to be like the other person and you just become so enmeshed. And that's what I love about human design, is that it allows for that honoring and understanding. And that's what I mean. I've never, ever pulled up someone's human design or done a reading for someone where they've gone, oh, no, that's not me. Never. Like it just doesn't happen. Like it resonates for everyone, because most people, as you're going through certain aspects, they're like, oh my God, yes, like I've always been like this, or yeah, like that resonates with me so much. Or people they know, like I did a reading for someone who she had her daughters and her granddaughters' charts. She printed all of them off. So as I was reading hers, she was looking at some of the other ones, because I think most of them were generators or man gens. And so she's like, oh, yeah, that's my granddaughter's just like that. And you can see these aspects. So like you said, so like if it didn't work, don't use it. But when it comes to human design, I think it's very uncommon that people pull up their chart and they're like, this isn't me.
I will say personal anecdote about this, though, is that when my chart was first given to me and somebody, you know, showed me my chart, I didn't resonate with it at all. The only thing I resonated with was the projector. I did really feel that really, really spoke to me. And I think the emotional authority really resonated. But my other stuff, I thought the person was crazy. And luckily they had been my coach already for, I don't know, probably 6 months to a year. So they knew me pretty well at that point. And she even looked at my chart the first time and she was like, oh, you've been so highly traumatized that you're acting the opposite of your chart.
Wow.
And
that was going to be my question.
Yeah,
were you living out of alignment?
So conditioned to be the opposite of my chart in order to be accepted. And so it has been like a really deep process of deconditioning for me, of studying my chart and really like finding the pieces that I can like, oh yeah, that's how I was. That's how I was when I was littler. That's how it was. Like that is true for me previously. Yeah. Right. And kind of relearning it. And so I just want to put that out there for anyone else who maybe has that experience. Yeah. Is that really look at like how you were really, really young, if you can remember, right? Because there's aspects where the conditioning can be really, really intense. And if you've had a lot of trauma or you've really learned to be a different way, it's really hard to identify the truth of what's being spoken to you within the human design chart. And again, experiment with it, right? So as soon as I started experimenting with it and really feeling into my defined centers versus my undefined centers and my profile and even leaning into like my incarnation cross, I was like, that is not me at all. I hated it for so long. It's like, feel into it, try it on, try it out and be like, oh, okay, this is my wounding. Or these are my fears around expressing that or being that way, right? Even as we were talking about the defined and undefined throat, my defined throat had been really conditioned to not be used.
Yeah.
And so it's like, just, coming back into it, remembering how I was actually designed to be and show up and exist in the world, and try it, right? I've tried it and my life gets better and better and better as I try it more and more and more. Okay, then I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah. That's such a good point to make. Yeah, because I think it's funny because as soon as you said, well, this is my first experience, and my first question was it because you were living out of alignment, and conditioning such a big one. And especially because I think you hear in human design, in the human design world, a lot of conditioning. A lot of it's talked about in terms of the open centers, but defined centers can also be conditioned. So it's important to know that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's super key.
Often, I mean, how I've heard it, and I do agree with this, it's harder to condition the defined centers because they are defined. Yet if you come from like extreme trauma background in certain ways, that's where you're going to get sort of hit. And so it's good to just know that, in working with people or understanding for yourself of like, okay, what were the big factors in this arena?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just going back to some of the like defined and undefined centers, like in partnership. So another big one for Isaac and I, and it's interesting as well. And that's why this like, so like you guys said, you just can go so deep into like the charts and each of your charts and over such a long period of time. Because I've noticed, so not only do I have an open, to get really granular, there's undefined and then there's open centers. So undefined is when it's white, but you might have activated gates. Open is when it's completely open. So I have a completely open sacral. There's nothing that grounds me in that sacral center. So I definitely feel that a lot. But Isaac has a defined root center and I have it undefined, but I do have a lot of activated gates in the root. Which is interesting how it plays out, because I often find, like I often say this, with just in our personal dynamic, I actually find that having my root undefined and his defined, I struggle with that more than the sacral undefined. I find that when I'm around a bunch of other generators or in crowds or like places, that's when I feel like I, as you say, Soph, like I fill up, where I'm just like, whoa, too much. I need to just be alone. In our day-to-day, I don't feel like that so much with the sacral. Like, some days are different, but it's that pressure center. And I think looking at my chart again recently, I actually have so many activated gates. And I think we have a couple that are the same. And so that energy feels really amplified. So sometimes that's what I struggle with the most, is like this constant feeling of like pressure to get things done. But it's because I also naturally have some of that energy because of the activated gate. So it's really interesting. Definitely would implore people to look at within the chart as well, like what gates you have activated, what are the energy of those gates, because it can, it just plays. It's so interesting to see how it plays out in those dynamics.
Well, what's the difference between the root and the sacral in like a relationship dynamic? Like what do they bring to a relationship?
Yerasimos,
I'm not sure. What do you mean? Like, what do they bring to a relationship?
Well, I kind of associate them with almost the same thing in my head, but there's got to be some differentiation, like the getting shit done or having the drive to do things. Is that more root or more sacral?
That's root.
Root is more of like a pressure and like a pulsing pressure to like keep going, get more things off your to-do list, like, and it's just this constant like pulsing of keep going. The sacral is similar in terms of like never enough for the non-sacrals, or the not self theme of it, never enough, but it's more consistent. It's an even energy coming out. The sacral center is also the center of sexuality, right? Of creation, creative energy or creativity. And so there is a thing, if you're asking strictly relational dynamics, where the non-sacral being can be conditioned sexually by the sacral of the other.
All right. So the
us
advantage
as
is in my court. Yeah.
Right. So us as non-sacrals, I know this sounds weird, but we don't have consistent access to our own creative sexual energy, right? Like it's just different. We may have, it's not, and again, even if it's completely open versus just undefined, it's not that we don't have these things.
Yeah.
It's just inconsistent. It's just not part of our actual like consistent makeup and being. So it just to like be clear about that. But it is like, I can be more influenced, right, by the sexual energies around me in a relational dynamic.
The healthy expression of that is enjoying like the diversity of sexual roles without identifying with anything in particular. The unhealthy would be repressing sexuality or identifying with the conditioning, and then that conditioning can lead to, just being more needy or whatever the case may be. So, that's just from a sexual standpoint.
Yeah, that's an interesting point actually to bring up in relationships, because I've actually often said that to Isaac sometimes. Like, I'm just like, I don't feel like that sexual drive all the time. Like, and that's it. Like that, it's more inconsistent. It's not that I don't have it. And actually I explained this to, I think it was my mum recently, because she kept saying, I don't understand like what it means by consistent and inconsistent energy. And I think we were talking about the emotional center, and that's kind of how I explained it. I was like, defined emotional centers are always on an emotional wave, and there's different types of waves. So they're always on, they experience their emotions in this set way. And for undefined, it's not that we don't experience emotions, because everyone has emotions, but there's no consistency to it. We experience it in different ways. It comes in different forms. We don't have a set wave. It's just like, and the way I explained it in that way, she was like, oh, I get that now. And because she could resonate for her, because she has an open emotional center. And I think it's definitely, I feel the same way with the open sacral, because it's not that I'm not a sexual being. It's just that I don't feel that drive consistently, where I think generators and manifesting generators definitely do.
Yeah.
True.
Yerasimos is like, yeah.
True in general, like, because I know lots of projectors, and I have these conversations, and I have lots of clients and readings that I've given to people that are projectors, and it's pretty standard, unless of course they've just fully taken on conditioning, but generally speaking, they just it's more inconsistent.
And I think it's important to know, so that it's not like, oh, something's wrong with me because I'm not like as sexual as my partner or whatever. I think it is important to know and just allow that, and just know, because I think what I found too is, because it's so inconsistent, and I find this with any sacral energy, whether it's like creativity or just pure energy, it's like really acting on it when it comes. Otherwise you're going to miss it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, and remember, like, we can also amplify their sacral energy.
Woo!
So, right? So we can also be like understanding, like, I may be amplifying this energy outside of myself. Not good, not bad, just like to be aware of it, right? And so maybe I'm doing that more at certain times. Maybe, like responding in certain ways. Like I may need to be invited more into that sexual creative energy, because it's not just consistently being generated within my own actual being. So again, I love that you said like taking out of this, like something's wrong with me, because I think that that's a huge, huge piece of human design when it's really taken in that way of like, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing bad about anyone's charts. There's nothing malignant in them. It's just awareness. And then how are you going to respond with it? How are you going to be mindful of it? How are you going to take responsibility for how, like, you know, me being bitter or something like that? Like, it's really just information to take as understanding of yourself, and again, letting go of that judgment of I should be different. No, you're literally designed that way. Sorry if you don't like it, figure out how to work with it. Like, we all have those trial aspects within our design. It's not wrong. There isn't a mistake. It's just, how do we now work with it? How do we now function?
Yeah, that's a really good thing, tying in with the sexuality stuff. Not to get too like graphic or nitty gritty, but I've definitely had conversations with a lot of men. For some reason, I mean, part of our biology is to blame. Part of it's the design as well, but we tend to have more drive for sexual stuff, more interest in that, and more consistently. And the challenge is when your partner is not, and isn't responding or doesn't want it in the same ways or the same amounts. And I know a lot of men that I've met that are very frustrated, and some of them, if they don't take responsibility and learn how to channel that energy into other ways that it is designed to be used for. In our culture in America, we're not really taught or shown or even aware that sexual energy isn't just about sex or intercourse, that it goes into, you know, your productivity at work. It goes into creating things, into building things, into bringing something from, you know, from the invisible into the visible. And, yeah, it's been challenging. I've known some guys, haven't talked to them since I became more aware of this, about this topic, but I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but balancing or channeling that energy to where else does it go other than just sex?
Right. And that comes back to like the frustrated versus satisfied generator too. Like, where else in your life are you doing things that you don't really want to do, or saying yes to things that were actually no's, or, you know, like, where else are you being frustrated in your use of your energy? And then it's sort of like being brought into the bedroom because it's like more acceptable, right? To say like, oh, I'm frustrated because my wife won't have sex with me, versus like, I'm frustrated because I'm not doing what I want to do, and I'm too like to really take responsibility for the life that I've created.
Yeah.
Right. I'm in this job that I hate, and I, you know, right. And I think it's also like understanding again that dynamic of like, even if you're generator, if you're both frustrated, you're not going to want to have sex.
Yeah.
Right.
Or especially like the female is not going to want to like take in that frustrated energy into her system, even if you're a generator, especially if you're a non-generator. Like, no, I don't want that in my physical being. I'm already pulling it in energetically. But it's like, but then the, you know, I think the male energy is more like this, get it out, like move it like out of us kind of thing. So it can kind of be this like easy sort of deposit, if you will, of like, get rid of that energy, instead of like, oh, are you actually using your energy in a positive direction in your life? Right. Like, it can be a little bit more throwaway. And I do think there is like a biological male female difference, right? Like, I do think that men are designed biologically to be able to impregnate many, many, many women as fast as possible. And women are not.
Yeah.
We're designed to be impregnated once.
Yeah.
Right. And so like biologically, there is a piece to that. And again, figuring out like what works for you, what works for your partner, what works within the dynamic, and going into like, I mean, as you're talking about the male female, both of you figuring out like what turns the other one on. Again, this is intimacy. Can I see the other and what works for them, or what they need, or what, you know, all of that stuff. And also again, I'm not going to want to be physically intimate with someone if I'm not being intimately seen. Right. So it's kind of again this relational dynamic of like, if you get into this dynamic of you owe me, or, you know, either one feeling that way, it's not going to be good at the end of the day. It's not, that's going to come into the bedroom at the same time versus
it definitely takes cultivation.
I remember, what was it? Yerasimos, my mom said this like Anne Lamott quote at our wedding. And I loved it of like, the best relationship is when both people feel like they're getting the better end of the deal.
Yeah.
And it really like, I mean, I don't know anyone who would be more apt to have sex or to give or to be generous or to be intimate with somebody if they weren't feeling like, oh, I'm getting so much from this.
Yeah.
Versus like, you owe me, I'm depleted, I need something, and you're withholding it from me. Right? Like, outside of human design, that's just a dynamic that's going to fester.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's such an important point to make with more, you know, I'm thinking more people that aren't really conscious of themselves, that don't do shadow work, like sort of your average, like your everyday person. You know, your more mainstream person, I think sex is quite often used as this bypass. And especially now in sort of the LGBTQ world of where like anything goes. And because Leanne Lapinto talks about this a lot, you know, we've had her on before, and where people's sexual preferences are becoming paramount to actual intimacy and connection. And because that sexual energy is such a sacred energy, and when you're in that with someone, it's an exchange. And so, and it is an energy exchange as well. Like I would say, first and foremost, it's an energy exchange. So if that energy is murky on either side, you know, you're taking that in. And then, you know, then to bring in the human design aspect, that's what I often think too with the open sacral or undefined sacral. If you're taking in that sort of murky sexual energy and amplifying it as well, you can be taking on these things that aren't you. So yeah, it's a really interesting aspect to look at.
Yeah. And know that, like, I mean, as you were saying, like you can be taking that on from anyone around you. Right. So it's my responsibility to empty that out, to clean my own being before I bring that into the bedroom.
Yeah.
Because it might not even have to do with him.
Yeah.
So what are some ways to get into that, to clean these things out, kind of take responsibility for your inside and do some housekeeping?
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, like it's one, that intention of like asking, is this mine? When I'm feeling stuff up, or like, what can I release right now? I mean, I know this might be woo-woo, but like a little bit of prayer, right? And it doesn't have to be to a God or, you know, anything like that. But like, I ask that anything that's not mine be lifted. That's it. Like, it doesn't have to be religious, right? It doesn't have to be like a thing. It's just like, I asked to, and for me, it's also like giving it to earth can be really helpful, like bare feet on the ground. I ask that any energies that aren't mine or that aren't for my highest good be removed and, you know, implanted into the earth.
Yeah.
Well, it's just intention, right?
With the elements like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just intention. Like you said, it doesn't have to be this big thing and a whole ritual. And I think it's just an intention. And especially I think saying it is really powerful, just because our words carry so much power, and it's just setting that intention. And I just wanted to say, because I was thinking of it earlier, and I definitely recommend for projectors, like check out the projector movement. They're on Instagram and YouTube, and I learned a lot when I was learning about my human design through them. Obviously, it's just for projectors, and they often say that for projectors, because we're not always, but generally we tend to be more open in our chart, and but because our aura is so absorbing, that being in nature is so important for us. Because if we're constantly absorbing, that's the energy we want to be absorbing. And that's like talking about sort of cleaning house. That can be really effective, to just be in nature and be absorbing that beautiful energy of just, you know, creator, God, whatever. Like, I know for me that brings me closer to that. So however people see it, but yeah, that can be a really, really effective way to do that for projectors and probably all non-energy types.
Absolutely. And I think people in general, I also like, you know, I'm a big believer in like energy hygiene, like be responsible for what all of those things on human design and non-human design, right? Like, but like one thing that I do is like I have to shower before I get into bed. And for me, that's a thing of like where I'm washing away all of the other energy from the day. You know, but it's really that figuring that out for yourself of your personal experimentation journey. Like, what is it that really hits for you? Right? You'll feel that, right? Again, as Yerasimos was saying, like feeling into those subtle somatic cues of like, okay, I can feel like something's up or something's in me or something, you know, like I'm a little full in certain ways or all of that. It's like, oh, okay, let me like take care of myself. Let me do the things I need to do. If that's get in water, you know, watch water, touch the earth, touch a tree, rocks, like any resources can be really, really helpful. Like for me, rose is one of them. If I look at a rose, if I smell rose, I have like rose water and rose oil, like generally like around me and accessible at most times, because it's like, oh, I just know that kind of centers me.
Yeah.
It just helps me kind of like clean out, right? If you use crystals, if you use air, if you use flowers, like whatever it is, it can be whatever.
Yeah. I like to do the frankincense. I'll light the charcoal, put the resin on it.
Yeah, he did some of that this morning. It's beautiful.
Yeah, you can do Palo Santo or sage, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And fire. When I was going through a lot of relationship turmoil and stuff, and especially when I was under a lot of pressure from work with the business that I was running back in the States, every day I started having a fire, and then would just sit outside by myself. And sometimes, you know, if I'm processing stuff, I'd write down little things I want to let go of and put it into the fire or speak it over it. And but just being close to that energy, I mean, just on a practical physical side, you got the native EMF or whatever they call that, the infrared, and very relaxing. But it literally will kind of dissipate energy out of your system that you're just holding, like just feeling that tension. So,
what about you, Yerasimos? Is there any things you like to do to clean house, so to speak?
I'm always clean.
That's right. I forgot you're a 11D ascended master. I forgot.
I'm at 33D right now.
33D. Wow.
Honestly, for me, it's, I don't know, exerting myself physically a little bit. Just going for a walk. I like going for a walk and being in nature and gardening. I like, you know, we're doing a lot of projects here at our home, and I'm learning more about permaculture and other things. And I like kind of getting my hands dirty and kind of being outside. And, you know, where we live, we're surrounded by nature and trees and birds. And we have cats on the property now, which I'm obsessed with. And so, you know, being with them and being outside, you know, works. And then the usual stuff like receiving body work and, you know, nourishing myself. And, you know, I would say that's the main thing.
Yeah,
so good.
I mean, I shower really too. I mean, I shower every night. I shower every night as well, which is nice.
Well, and actually, isn't it funny you mentioned the showers? Because definitely the water cleansing is a big thing. It's like for energy cleansing as well. But I've always loved baths. I'm a bath person. I know some people don't like. I'm a bath person. And then learning recently that salt water in particular is amazing for cleansing your aura, your auric field. And I was like, it's just interesting, like the things we're naturally drawn to. Like this, I've always loved baths well before I knew I was a projector. And I was like, I think instinctually that's something. And especially when I lived in Sydney, like when I lived in cities and suburbs, I always needed a bath, and I'd often put the Epsom salt. And I was like, like instinctually I was cleansing my auric field because absorbing a lot, lots of energies. And so I think, but for anyone, I think that's really important. And yeah, the water is very, very cleansing on so many levels.
Yeah.
I mean, just to think about how you feel, and then you jump in an ocean and you come out and you just feel completely different every time.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I feel that when I'm, even just swimming, like in a swimming pool, I feel, sleep really well, feel almost exhausted at some point, especially when I was carrying a lot of tension, the feeling of not holding that, you just feel like, I need to sleep, because I've just been constantly, I think, I was for years, drinking energy drinks, coffee, chewing tobacco, like just constantly keeping myself wound up, because that's just how I got stuff done. And, it's really good to take a look under the hood sometimes and see, is there a different way that things can be done that doesn't require, dependency on substances or habitual habits or things that aren't healthy. So
absolutely. Yeah. And it is a big deal, right? For sacral energy to be used, to be cycled. So like to exhaust yourself physically as much as
I think I agree with that. And just back to the satisfaction thing, like if you're not satisfying yourself truly, you're going to look for those quick fixes and the short-term gratification, even going back to the sexuality conversation, I just feel like, being on purpose more and truly satisfied from deeper aligned values is the way to go. And if you're not, you're just like, what's the quick fix? And that usually doesn't serve you in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's each person's responsibility for that, because, man, it's such a different feeling being in a relationship like this now, where, the whole term "happy wife, happy life." It's true, but it's not the husband's job to do everything to make the wife happy. If he
both
can,
people need to make themselves happy first, man.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the starting point.
Yeah. And then you fill from a full cup. You pour into each other, and it's just a good thing making another good thing greater.
I agree.
Yeah. So I know you guys have shared a little bit on this. I think the last time I heard you guys on a podcast was on Alpha Vedic, and you guys met. I think it was the first time I heard you guys say that you're. Yeah, it was a while ago now. And I remember you guys saying that you're more open to having kids now, you guys, before you kind of said, no, not really planning on having kids.
Was that an Alpha Vedic? We talked about that in Alpha Vedic?
Yeah. No, you didn't go into it, but you just said, look, we're open to things that might change or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, I was like so excited. I was like, no, don't project. But yeah, no, I just wanted to
projectors.
I know. No, but I just wanted to say, like, where are you guys at now? Like with your relationship, what you guys are doing? Obviously, I know you guys are doing a lot on your land and like where you are, and that's amazing. But yeah, like what else? Like, is there, I know, and the cats, I've been watching your story with the cats on Instagram. I know you've become very fond of them, Yerasimos.
I'm the cat man. I never liked cats. I was indifferent to cats my whole life. I was the dog person, and now I'm obsessed with cats, and we have 5.
Wow.
Yeah, they're pretty fascinating creatures. I love them. So that's new. But yeah, as for the kid thing, I mean, I think Sophie and I, when we started dating, she had just started her PhD, and like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't into like getting married or having kids, and things shifted. I think a year and a half ago for Sophie, and also for me, like I'm way more open to it. So we'll see how things unfold, but. There's so many things going well in our lives and our home. We love where we live. We love what we're building, creating, and what we have built and created so far. And we have this new motto over the last, I think, year, more love. Like, let's just bring more love into our lives, and which we have, just through community, but even, with all the cats, it's like, fuck it, more love. These cats are just amazing, and they're bringing more love into our life.
Well, and even like, Yerasimos' mom is about to move in with us and things like that. So again, like we just keep feeling like this, like just more love, like more, however that shows up, we're here for it. So I think at the moment we're more just in that place of like, we're open to like whatever the next step is for us, right? Like it's just kind of like, even with kids, it's this funny thing that I've kind of been like feeling into of like, I've been a no for basically my entire life. Like, I don't remember being a yes. We got together as a no. Both of us being a no. I'm the one who had the shift first. And then as the generator, it's like he has to feel into his response and kind of like, what's happening, what's going on, and all of that, you know, and like, at the end of the day, we can make the decision, but who knows if it's going to happen. And I'm not in a place where I have any inclination to do any interventions or bring in any medical stuff into it.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, I feel like in the past year, as he said, like we've really taken on this like mindset of like more love. We're here for whatever that means, whatever the more love is of like more on this property or like however that manifests. And it is this joke of like, we've had two of the cats just showed up, just happened to come around and adopted us. Like they were completely wild and could do whatever they wanted. And then they just showed up and then they were like, okay, we're staying here. Right. And so it's kind of this like, we're just open to like, okay, what has to happen next? Okay, his father died, and it was always kind of in the backs of our minds of like, okay, so then, you know, my mother-in-law will move in and we can do that and da-da-da. But like, and now it's happening. And it's like, okay, how can we open up to more love? How can we expand our capacities to be with more beings around us? And as you said, like our social circles, things like that, like everything keeps expanding. And so that's just kind of like that's our motto at the moment that we keep saying when something happens or someone new comes in, or even if someone like leaves or something distressing happens or something, it's like, okay, where's the more love? Like what's coming in?
Well, hopefully nobody drops their baby off on our front door, you know.
You want to be open, but not too open.
A little bit more clear about
now we started an orphanage.
They called to us and adopted us.
I love that for you guys. Yeah.
We'll see. We're open.
Yeah, I love that you guys, like, even from like, when I first started listening to you guys on the podcast, Yerasimos, and then in the community group, like you've always said, like, never really felt called to children, but it might change. Like you've always said that like it could change. And I love that because I'm also someone who never wanted to get married, never wanted to have kids. I mean, I think when I was like a very early teenager, I thought like, oh, I'll probably get married at 25, you know, because of the things that you're like told or the things you've seen in your family, but it was never really serious consideration.
Especially in a WOG family.
Like it's just the norm. So for me, I was a bit the same. Never wanted to get married, never wanted to have kids. And at that point in my life, I was so rigid about it. I was like, no, never. But like it was coming from such a wounded place. Like I can see that now. And then obviously that completely flipped, like especially like when I met you guys, like that completely flipped. And I got to this point where I was like, that's like part of my purpose. That's why I'm here. And so just being open to it. And I remember like really admiring that even then when you were like, no, not really, but you know, that could change. And I remember thinking, oh my God, but they'll be so, like the best parents. And I was like, I'm never going to say that because I know what that's like when you're like, I don't want kids, I don't want to get married. And everyone's like, that'll change. And they're like project onto you.
We know. I mean, I can't tell you how much projection that we got for the last, I mean, we've been together 10 years, probably like within a year or two of our relationship, just people like, if anyone should have kids, it should be you two. And I was like, yo, can you chill, please? Chill. Like, projection somewhere else.
To bring it back to the human design thing, right? We both have 5s within our profiles. He's a 5-1, I'm a 3-5, which is very, very strong positive projection fields. Which, you know, can be really nice and handy, but it's also like to be really clear, like we're human, we're figuring it out, we're messy, we're working on it, we're constantly in this experiment just like everyone else. Figuring out what the next step is, and just for us is like, okay, what's the next step, and like, do we have the courage to be open to it? Right? Do we have the courage to see whatever the next step is and to possibly take it and then grow into that? Because it's sort of like, we don't know what we would be like as parents. Like, we don't know what that's like because we haven't done it. Are we open to the possibility of growing into that? Are we open to the possibility of developing into whatever that calls of us, if it does call of us, you know. But I think that that's like just a big thing to be aware of like, even as you said, you know, his languaging around like, we're a no right now, but you know, anything could happen or anything could change. Even with Yerasimos in the beginning of him being not open, I'll say, to like the idea of marriage, he never said no.
Yeah.
He would say, that's not something I've ever considered, or it's not something I'm ready for yet. But I remember that being something that like really hit for me, because I do think there's validation in these, you know the deal breakers and things like that. I think there is validness in that. If he had maybe said like, I am absolutely not open to that, I will never be open to that, that is not something I have any interest in ever doing, that is a very different conversation than we were having. So even in my telling of the story in the beginning, it's like it maybe was landing for me that way, but in retrospect, his energy was, let's see what happens. And that's often what he would even language was like, I don't know what's happening. I know that we work really well right now. Let's see what happens. Let's see how this unfolds. And I think that was really helpful for me, but also just, for anybody listening to this or, getting into partnership and things like that, like just the openness of possibility. And I think we've both been pretty good at that. And then like sort of like allowing the time and space for our partner to have their own experience of whether or not that's something that they would be interested in being open to. Right. Because even with the marriage thing, it was like, once I let go of my grip a little bit more of it, he then had the space to like feel into it. And he came to his decision, obviously, to get married, to ask me to marry him. But it was like, I feel like if I had continued to be like, you have to ask me, you have to ask me, you have to ask me, like that wasn't giving him the opportunity to feel into it organically for himself along the way, you know? And even, it keeps developing, but that like just continually being open to something. And there's things for him too, that like I said like, no, or I'm not interested in that, or I don't know about that at the beginning. But not in terms of like the harsh, no, absolutely not. That's not correct for me. More like, I don't know yet. I don't know myself in that way yet. I don't know what I'm like in a 10-year relationship because I haven't been in a 10-year relationship. Right? Like, I don't know what I'm going to be open to down the road.
I thought I'd never be in a 10-year relationship. Like, you asked me a long time ago, I'd be like, 10-year relationship? Jesus Christ. That's a long time. It's a long time to be with one person. But yeah, I think that's just the philosophy that I've kind of like, it's become more part of who I am, is that like I may have some things that I know, and yet there's so much that I don't know. And even just from a human design standpoint, the conditioning influence of the undefined ajna is this like need to convince everyone that you're certain. Well, and a lot of times it has to do with like knowledge and life events, but it can be personal too. Like, no, I'm definitely never going to get married. I'm definitely never doing this. It's like, fuck, I didn't like cats for 44 years of my life. Now, like, you could anoint me as the fucking cat man of California. I mean, I want 20 more to show up on the property. Like, it's crazy. So, like, it humbles me to be like, man, you may think you know yourself and where you're going to be in 2 years and 5 years. And I think in a lot of ways I do know myself, and yet I keep enough space there to be surprised, to go, hey, listen, like, I don't want to be so rigid in the things that I know and believe. And that relates to just, how I approach a lot of things in life, especially in the world we're in. And you look at things from like a truther standpoint or a fucking conspiracy standpoint, like, man, there's a lot of shit I don't fucking know. And like, I'm here for it. It's cool. It's interesting, but I like to be surprised, and I want to remain humble to the fact that I don't know everything. I don't have everything figured out. And that also has to do with how my fucking life is going to unfold. So,
I think that's such a great place to be operating from, because that was one of my biggest lessons was, being more open to uncertainty and just allowing things to unfold instead of trying to control everything and trying to know the right decisions to make and got to go here and got to do this and going in this direction and whatever. And like, yeah, I used to be like that. I used to be very rigid and like everything was very controlled. But in that, there wasn't there was no space to just allow things to naturally unfold and to receive more from the universe. Because that's what, like, just hearing you guys speak about just how you've become more open to kids now. It's like you're just open to the universe, like whatever's meant to be for us, whatever the right path is will reveal itself, and just having that trust and that faith. And yeah, it's such a, like, being on both sides, this is a much nicer place to operate from.
It's so much less stressful and it just feels better. I like it. And it takes time to get here.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I feel like it's also that like dedication that both of us have, and it sounds like you guys have. And I know you guys are constantly like excavating for yourselves of like, I think that that's such a big piece of this openness to things, of like really continually like question yourself on like the things that I hold so tightly. Why?
Yeah.
Right. Because if it's just true of me, then why do I have to hold it like this?
Yeah.
Trying to just be like, oh, this is just me. Right. It's like, we all have that experience of like, you say something and it's like, it has all this energy around it of like, oh, this has to be true. And I have, this is the way. And, or the other aspects where you're just like, yeah, this is just me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think this circles again back to this like intimacy of like, are you open to like constantly kind of like seeing into yourself in more and more deeper ways of like, oh, I'm gripping that really tight. Okay. That might be coming from a little bit more of like a trauma response. That may be coming from maybe a little bit more of a wounded place than like a real authentic doesn't have to grip. It doesn't feel like, like angry about it. And I feel like there was a part of me that when people would ask me about kids, because the projection field was so strong, it was like, I had to like prove like, no, we were never going to do that because we have to be different. And then I kind of like got to this place where I was like, what is that? What am I doing? Like, I was like, is that true? And like, it could still be true. Who knows? Like, I'm not saying that immediately when you let go of that, oh, it's going to flip into the opposite.
Yeah.
It could still be true, but it's like, wouldn't it be nicer to just like, I don't know, it's just there. It's just me.
Yeah.
It's like, it's me. You have to see this and recognize it.
Yeah. That's part of the self-awareness that I appreciate, because I see that now more interacting with people that are more like on the religious side, where things are like, it's definitely only this. And it spreads to a lot of different things, not just pertaining to the specific beliefs around the religion, but it's like they have that need that they need to like force the certainty. Like it has to be a certain way. And
beyond religion, we see it all the time with like world events, everyone like within
diets,
20 seconds, it's like they come on board, everyone posting like they know the truth of something. It's like, what?
Yep. I'm on this side. This is the right side.
Part of me that's just so over all that, I'm just like, I just want to hang out with my wife. I want to do my work. I want to plant some fruit trees, hang out with my dog and my cats. And like, I give a fuck about all the craziness going on in the world.
Yeah.
Anyways.
It feels more grounded though. Cause it's like, no matter what happens, it's like, I'll find a way. Like I'm like, I have water. I'm like water, like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Like China's circling Australia. That was on the news for a bit. I'm like, maybe it'd be kind of cool if China was in control for a bit. I don't know. Like, I'll try it out.
That would be interesting. That's for sure. That would be very
I can learn Chinese. I like languages.
I love your perspective, babe. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's what I mean. I'm kind of like blissfully unaware, but not like, I don't stick my head in the sand, but I just don't care. Like the whole Trump thing, I just kind of sit back with like, this is what I said to everyone when he got in. I'm like, whether you love him or hate him, he's friggin' entertaining. Like I'm just sitting with the popcorn and, when people start to, and he's done this and he's done this and he's a savior and or not, they never use those words, but everyone thinks he's a savior. And it's just like, maybe not. Just maybe be open to the fact that you might not be, because I just don't believe that there are any saviors. But it's interesting to watch unfold. But yeah, it's always
a spoonful of sugar makes a medicine go down.
It's very interesting to watch it unfold, and yet like bring things back to like your value system and what was in your control. You know, it's like, so you have so many people commenting on everything happening in the world and spending all this time and energy. And again, people are free to go wherever their imagination takes them. But like, what's the state of your relationship? First, I mean, this is an episode about relationships. So like, how are you relating to your partner? How are you relating to your children? How are you relating to your close friends? Like if things aren't working well there and you're wasting all this time on shit out of your control, like I feel like it's, you know, your priorities aren't in the right place. And again, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
It's important to be aware of what's distracting you, because you can be distracted by things that are important. You know, there are things that call to our attention and we're like, oh, this matters. But it's like, am I also just focusing on that so I don't have to deal with, you know, this thing between us or this discomfort in my family? It's like,
because people are searching for certainty, and they'll search for more certainty or pretend that they're certain, especially if other things are uncertain in their lives. You know what I mean? So like, especially the state of their relationship or their purpose or what they're doing in the world. Like if that's not there, it's very easy to get lost in a lot of these things and go down all the rabbit holes and proclaim things online. It feels good to be self-righteous. It feels good to be certain because there's no vulnerability there. There's no, what if I'm wrong? There's no, I don't know. You know, it takes a lot to be able to hold the I don't know and the I could be wrong. You know?
Well, especially with men, like that certainty thing, I definitely struggle with that. Not so much struggle now, but now it's definitely more, I'm aware that with the open ajna, because coming back from the military, it's like you need to be certain. You need to be absolute. Like if you speak with conviction and certainty, people will listen to you and you can lead. And that's about the leader and being strong in this and stuff. I'm like, I'll do that. And then I'll be like, wrong. Oh shit. I was so certain about that. Now I'm like embarrassed because I was very certain because I'm supposed to be certain all the time. And then I changed my mind and now I'm not certain about that thing. And I look like an idiot. So it's like, it's reshaping how I relate to myself.
For sure. And like, I have strong beliefs and convictions about certain things, but how does one communicate them? You can communicate them and still be like, I'm open to learning more and I'm open to being wrong. So it's very different than like, this is the fucking truth. You're wrong. You're all idiots. You know what I mean? So,
and being okay with other people having a differing opinion to you. Do you know what I mean? Because I used to be like that where, if I had a really strong belief around something and, you know, and still do sometimes where like there's things within me that I know, like it's not an intellectual knowing, it's just a knowing. And in the past, I would often try and convince others of that if they didn't like believe the same thing, and I'd get really emotional about it. Whereas now it just
like how
doesn't
to pronounce words.
Oh, shush you. But now it just doesn't faze me at all. Yeah, we do still get into it a little bit about
it's
how
so funny.
Words are pronounced.
It's tomato. It's tomato. It's just no.
By the way, that actually reminds me, I'm so glad I remembered this before we finish up. I remember on our interview, Sophie, and you were saying how because of your parents' accent and like moving around and stuff, how you like, there's a few things I still like don't pronounce. And that's what I forgot to tell you on that episode. I love how you say can't. Like, I think it's the cutest thing ever. And I remember when I first like noticed it, like, you know, a couple of years ago when we met, and I remember asking Isaac once, is there somewhere in America where that's how they pronounce it? And he's like, I don't think so. And then you said, no, there's just certain words that I still like pronounce a certain way. And I was like, oh, that must be one of them, but I love it.
I don't think there's anywhere in England that pronounces it that way either.
You know what I noticed though?
My sister and I say it the same way, and I feel like it's like we mush together the American and
there's no R. There's no R in the American. There's no R in the fucking English. So I don't know where the R comes from.
Well, that's like an Australian. They say it the same. They just don't pronounce the R. They say can't.
Can't. Yeah, but no. Do you know what's so funny though.
If you say cart, like C-A-R-T, where's my shopping cart? And you say shopping cart.
So both my parents are English, and that's how they pronounce it. And for some reason, my sister and I put an R in there, and it was funny actually. At our wedding, your brother mentioned that in his speech.
Oh yeah,
in his best man speech. He made fun of
so funny.
He's like, she's perfect, except she doesn't know how to say the word can't and says sorry too much.
It's so funny because that's why I think it's cute, because I think when I was a little girl and you do accents and you play around with it, I think I used to say can't because I would just put the R's in anywhere to sound American, and you actually say it. I just think it's adorable.
She's very adorable.
She is adorable. You're a lucky man, Yerasimos.
Luck had nothing to do with it.
So confident. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on, guys. I've been looking forward to this for so long. I feel finally validated that I got to be on with Yerasimos and part of the fun, part of the interview. Just remind people, because obviously you've both been on before, but where can people find you and the work that you're doing and all the stuff you got going on?
Sophie, you go first.
You can find me on my website, sophiefletcherphd.com. I'm on Instagram at sophiefletcher.phd, but I wouldn't say that I'm like a prolific poster. And then I'm part of their Rise Above the Herd program as well. I do nervous system somatic work in there. I think that's pretty much where you can find me.
Yeah, as for me, everything that I do, it's on hereforthetruth.com that I do with my business partner and co-host of our podcast, Here for the Truth. You can find that podcast pretty much anywhere. On Instagram, I'm at _Yerasimos, or our podcast page at Are You Here for the Truth? And that's about it.
Love it. Yeah, and sign up to the mailing list. I'm loving your Here for the Truth Fridays. I love getting your articles.
I should thank you for saying that. I should plug that. Yeah, it's something we've been doing for a while now. Here for the Truth Fridays, where we send out a different article every week, which has been really fun in that regard. Just to kind of just share a lot of things that we find are important, and spending more time writing and putting things together has been really cool. You can sign up for our newsletter by going to www.hereforthetruth.com/Friday, I believe.
Okay.
There
you go.
Or go to the website.
Put those links in the show notes. Yeah. We'll link everything in the show notes, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon. I don't know when soon will be, but I feel the calling to go back to the States. I always say to her, I'm like, should we just go back? And I don't know, we're considering if we were to come back, maybe living there for a period of time, but it's all very up in the air. But I feel definitely, I always dream about LA and California. Whenever I dream of going overseas, it's always there. Like actual dreams, while she's sleeping. Yeah. And that's why it's significant, because I'm like, if I'm dreaming of a certain particular, that particular place. And it's funny, actually, I've had quite a few dreams. I think I had 3 dreams over a few month period of you guys specifically. So going to LA and visiting you guys specifically. I can't really remember the dreams now, but yeah, for sure.
It will be great to meet you and great to see you again, bro.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be like the Mila moment when you guys met Mila for the first time. That was
awesome. That's so cool.
It's wild. Well, it's the thing about it was really sweet, and it's the thing about our internet world is that we connect online with these people all around the world, and then years go by, and then you meet them in person. It's so trippy.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. So I look forward to it.
Yeah. Can't wait. Thanks, guys. Love you lots.
Yeah, love you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Natural AF. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed recording it and putting it out there for you. These episodes are a lot of fun. They're always packed with some kind of gold nugget or something valuable that you can share with family or friends, someone in your friend circle that might get a lot out of this. You can check our show notes for the link tree, which is where all the places that we can be found for audio or video podcasts. Rumble and YouTube are the best for video. You can like us and share us a comment on there, reach out to us on that, and also Substack. If you want to leave us a comment or send up a message, the link tree has our Substack as well. And if you're following us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to give us a rating or review. And that actually makes it come up in more people's feeds and spreads the word and makes us easier to find. We appreciate everyone's effort and support for helping the show grow. And we will see you next week on Natural AF.